Hey everybody, hey, happy Sunday. Here we are. It's the Sunday show after dark. Normally I do the early show. Tonight I'm on the later show. I'm Matt Dillahunty, joined tonight by Dr. Adair. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm busy, but I'm doing good.
I know busy. As a matter of fact, allow me everyone to complain for just a moment. We do have a call we're going to get to right off the bat. This is a call-in show, 720-619-2288. The number's on the screen and also down below. You can go to callinstudio.com. The link that's down below there. You can call in there. We'd like to know, what do you believe and why should we believe it as well? And generally on Sunday shows, we're talking about um, religion, supernatural, spiritual, whatever the heck that means. But it could be any number of things. Like, on occasion, we'll get into political stuff. But generally, I mean, this is kind of the opportunity for you to call in and explain why we should believe what you believe. I listened to the early show today, and wow, yeah, that was rough. It was very difficult to get sincere, honest interlocutors calling in to defend their beliefs. We're in the middle of, or we're in the beginning, I guess, still of my year of Zen, which means you're not going to get yelled at. You might get put on hold for clarity, and I still will use profanity just because I absolutely enjoy it. But generally speaking, I'm the Zen man. I'm the chill man. And if you manage to bust my Zen, which means like like I'll take Phil Bro calls because I don't think any of you can bust my Zen anymore. I think I'm pretty stable. But if you do, I'll be donating $50 to a charity, and it'll probably be a really good charity. But let me tell you how busy I am right now. After tonight's show, I've got to get some rest because all day tomorrow is Rat Day. For anybody who doesn't know, Arden and I raise exotic pets. We breed 22 species of snakes, I think it is. And that means that we also take care of the rodents that are used to feed them. And so Monday is Rat Day, where I clean up all of that stuff. And it's a lot of work. And then Tuesday, I've got to finish up 4 videos for the month because Wednesday is a show day. Wednesday, I'll be here for the Hang Up Wednesday evening along with the Thinker. And uh, I also have to get everything done and prepped because I'm packing up an entire magic show in the truck and driving part of Thursday and part of Friday to get to NanoCon. If you are interested in going to NanoCon, that's the Nashville Nuns Convention. It's just outside of Nashville, at a state park, but you can go to nanocon.rocks, ROCKS, and find out more information about NanoCon. You can come down there. There's a ton of people going to be there. Promise is going to be there remotely, but I'll be there. Forrest will be there. If you go to nanocon.rocks, you can see everybody that's going to be there. I'm going to be doing a magic show Saturday night. I was just actually talking to Dr. Adair because one of the tricks is going to, I'm gonna bust some physicists and show them that um, with a different version of not quite quantum and not quite entanglement, you can have communication that's not quite faster than the speed of light, but it's still really impressive. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. On that note, man, I'm just in a shockingly good mood, and I don't know if it's because I'm crazy tired or just overwhelmed, but there's been so much going on. What have you been up to?
I have been, well, like I said, I've been busy because besides this opportunity with you guys, I have not one, but two full-time jobs, as well as my research with my MIT group, my other side research. And I literally have just done two different flights to California for conferences. So I just got back from flying, and boy, are my arms tired, is the joke. And I will not be better than that joke because my humor's not better than that.
There's no need to try and be better.
And I did notice somebody in chat did recognize that my shirt, that this is some very simple MATLAB code. So yes, you're right about that. And the weird thing is, on the back of the shirt, it's in German where it says Sprechen Sie MATLAB? Do you speak MATLAB? And weirdly enough, No, I almost never use MATLAB. I almost exclusively use Python for my work. So I'm a bad representative of the t-shirt. Sorry, not sorry.
All righty. Hey, we've got caller, and we're going to get started on these callers. If you're someone, I guess I'll kind of go through. I mean, I mentioned that the purpose is to kind of call in and say, "Hey, here's what I believe and why I think you should believe it." A couple of things to note. Are, are you able to do that? Are you able to explain in a way that people can generally understand without some sort of massive amount of research or understanding or jargon or big long story? I mean, you would think that if there was like a god or something supernatural or something like that, um, since there are plenty of people, billions of people in the world, who many of whom aren't necessarily world beaters when it comes to knowledge, education, or intelligence, but many of them are incredibly bright, brilliant, and knowledgeable. And so it runs the gamut. And so if this is something that's true, it should be approachable to many people. Hopefully there's somebody out there who can explain it in the way that, a doofus like me can understand. Um, I know language, I know logic, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't know anything about some religions, but we're going to be asking questions. It's like earlier today, somebody was calling in to, I don't know, do some philosophy stuff. And one of the questions I keep asking is, why are you asking us questions? There's nothing about my position or Aaron's position that is in any way relevant to whether or not you have a good reason for your beliefs. It's not like you were exploring the world, found out, hey, Matt thinks this and Aaron thinks that. Therefore, here's why I believe in God. Instead, when you ask those questions, it seems to be more like you're trying to tailor something to what you think might sound compelling to us, which, don't get me wrong, I can appreciate putting things in terms of your audience. But really, we're just looking for why you believe and why you think we should believe. And that boils down to just telling us that. And, also, it's not a race. You will almost certainly get to speak more um, if you say what you need to say in manageable conversational doses, and if you answer the question we ask. If one of us says, why should we believe in God? And you say, I was just in a difficult time in my life, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and I just found it really appealing. Okay, cool. That doesn't tell us, either one of us, why we should believe in God. And so we've got to get to just a little bit more than that. But our first caller is on the line, ready to go. Here we go. And we have, it's either Manu or Manu. I don't know which one, from Washington. Pronouns are he, him. Says, well, I'm confused, Manu, because it says you're an atheist. And then you say the atheist movement and the liberal movement is the largest hate movement in American history. What's going on? Welcome to the show.
Oh, correct. Pronoun is mast and ter, by the way. But anyways, let's move on up past
It says here
nonsense.
it says here your pronouns are he, him. Why would you say your
I
pronouns
must
are
have just
mass and
wrote that
ter,
in
which
there. But anyways,
but hang on. Why hang
can
on.
I ask a couple questions of you real
Hang,
quick?
no, you can't. I'm still trying to talk and figure why would you say your pronouns are mass and ter when those aren't pronouns?
I'm a master.
Okay,
We
but that's
have to
not
just make shit
pronouns.
up.
That's not
Okay,
pronouns.
cool story. So you're a socialist, right?
No, I'm sorry. This is gonna be really bad. Um, there's absolutely no way you're gonna bust my Zen. It's not gonna happen. Um, you can think you're being clever. I'll give you an A, give you a package of Mange too, and you can go away. Or you can learn how to have a conversation with the two of us here in a way where you get to make your point and we get to address it. There's no need for you to ask us any questions at all. And there's no reason for you to get snarky or stupid about pronouns. So let's try this. Let's reboot and let's try this all over again. We have Manu. I think it's Manu. I'm not sure that we got clarification on pronunciation. If we did, I'm sorry. From Washington, pronouns are him, who is an atheist, but also says the atheist movement and the liberal movement is the largest hate movement in America. Manu, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Manu or Manu?
Manu.
Manu, thank you. So what's going on that you think atheists and the liberal movement are the largest hate movement in American history?
So, I'll just start with the leftist collectivist movement, who predominantly is atheist, is the largest hate group in America. And I would just argue that from a standpoint of the left, the modern left is responsible for the 28 genocides that the left has committed over the last 100 years, totaling in 100 million deaths throughout Europe and Asia. So you have to kind of
hold on. You were
genocides.
talking about the American leftists and liberals. So if you're saying we're the biggest haters in America, what has China to do with that?
Ideology? So you.
No.
It's the same as neo-Nazi adopting.
Manu.
Just let me finish talking, bro.
No, I'm not going to let you finish talking.
No,
Here, let me mute you again. I'm sorry that this is so difficult for you. I don't know what the left has done to you, but because I'm on the left, because I am a secular humanist, because I have compassion and empathy, I know that I'm supposed to feel sorry for you. I don't, but I'll act like it because you're being absolutely obnoxious. What Aaron said was, you seem to have raised a conflicting point, which is you say the American left is responsible for, or is the largest hate movement. And then you point out that you think the left is responsible for a whole bunch of genocides over the last 100 years or so, but that's not the American left. But in any case, let's do it this way. I'm going to ask a couple of simple questions, and that'll determine how best to do this, because that way we won't have to waste our time. Do you think that Aaron and I are part of a hate movement?
Yes.
Do you think that what we're doing is in any way supportive of genocide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then instead of telling me about the history or what you think we bought into, just address just myself and Aaron as to what genocides we're guilty of.
You are guilty of every genocide that the Soviet Union committed, the one in Cambodia.
I'm sorry.
And you are responsible.
I'm sorry, Manu.
Hold on.
I know this, man. I had to mute you again.
Manu, I'm not even old enough to remember the Soviet Union. So saying I'm responsible for what the Ruskies did while I was still shitting my diaper is kind of ridiculous. So let's be specific. What genocide have Matt and I actually supported?
You are responsible for it.
How am I responsible for things that happened before I was even born?
Let me ask you a question before we
No.
Before we go there.
I'm sorry.
Answer that question. How am I responsible?
Manu, you need to answer. You need to answer Aaron's question, which is, how can he be responsible for something that happened before he was born?
If you adopt
No, I'm sorry, Manu. Good job. Gold star. You are definitely doing your best to bust my zen and be the most dishonest, stupid caller I've engaged with in months. This is really simple. We're exposing your cartoonish ridiculousness and your absolute confusion. And at this point, if there was another caller, by the way, phone lines are open, 720-619-2288. Please, somebody better than Manu, call in so that we don't have to spend as much time on this absolutely cartoonish ridiculousness from this whiny little pathetic individual who's been so wounded by the left that he somehow thinks that Aaron and I can be responsible for things we did not do, we're not involved with, and we're not alive for, merely because we might, maybe we haven't even gotten that far, share some principles or political leanings of some of the individuals prior to that. So, Manu, what crime have Aaron and I committed?
The social crime of adopting a murderous ideology.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you're genuinely too stupid for me to not keep you muted most of the time. Here we go. There's no such thing as a social crime. Genocide's just a crime. It's not a social crime. And adopting a particular ideology isn't a crime. That's called freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. So, for example, I have a number of views. My views are predicated on things like secular humanism. I care about a living wage, equality, equity. I care about individual rights and freedoms, autonomy. I was far closer to supporting murderous things when I was in the military for 8.5 years as a right-leaning individual. And now I'm not. So I'm trying to figure out if you're a troll or if you're insane or if you can possibly make a point. Because we're trying to figure out what it is that you called in to complain about. And we tried to narrow this down to where you were just talking to just Aaron and myself. But you're now just dishonest as fuck and trying to say that whatever your agenda is to call in and complain about some ideology that you don't like, you've now decided you're going to saddle us with it, whether we were involved, whether we were alive. And we don't even know if you agree with it or if we agree with it. So let's try this. Without being generic, without referencing, oh, you adopted an ideology. I need you. I'm going to make this as easy as possible. I'm going to put a question over my head. And how you address this question is going to determine how the rest of the call goes. Okay. The question that's over my head right now is, what position do I support that is murderous? Your turn.
The position that you support is socialism. If you...
Okay. I'm sorry, but there's nothing about socialism that is in fact murderous. Aaron?
Well, I guess at this point, I just need to remind Manu of all the things I'm not. I don't consider myself a communist, and I don't consider myself a Stalinist, a Maoist. I don't use Marxist philosophy. I don't use dialectical materialism. All of that superstructure that the Soviet philosophy was built on is not something I employ. At most, I would say I'm a socialist in the same way as someone who says, hey, there ought to be a social safety net. There should be the realization that there are failures in the free market in numerous places. But I also think that free trade in many avenues is, in fact, the best way. So I'm this weird hybrid, evil, not capitalist, but I'm nowhere near what Lenin was trying to institute, let alone Stalin. So anything you want to bootstrap me with that, I'm sorry, that is actually not part of my political philosophy.
Yeah, I'd like to remind you real quick, Manu, before I unmute you, that I specifically asked you to be specific, not generic. So when you say you adopt socialism, that's not specific. What position do we advocate that is murderous? You can't say socialism. You have to say, what policy are we advocating for that is in fact a murderous problem? Your turn.
Are you there?
Yes. Yep. I just asked you a question.
So yeah, I heard the question. So
what position do I support?
So what you're doing is you're actually framing in the.
No, actually, I'm not framing. I'm muting you because you're dishonest as fuck, and it amuses me to toy with you like a chew toy as you embarrass yourself by becoming even more cartoonish and stupid. See, you could have spoken a lot. You could have made a point, but you decided to come in hot and dumb. So I'm going to keep asking the question. I'm going to unmute you. And the question is, what position do I support that is murderous? And you're going to answer that question. And until you actually state a position that I support that is in fact murderous, you won't get to say anything else other than that. So here we go. Manu, what position do I support that's murderous? That's what I thought. Anything else?
Are you there? Am I unmuted yet?
I literally
unmuted for half a minute
and asked you a question. And the question is, what position do I support that is murderous?
Well, we need to get to know each other a little bit more because.
Okay, well, I'm going to mute you again because now you get to know me. By the way, the lines are open, 720-619-2288, if anybody serious would like to call in. Manu, it's really wild that you can call in and want to complain broadly about the atheist movement and the liberal movement, and then try to saddle that with every corrupt communistic thing. I have difficulty believing you're an atheist, in part because this is a tired old canard from Christian apologetics saying that atheists have killed more people and blah, blah, blah. And you look at Mao and all this and stuff. And that's fine. You may or may not be. But at this point, I have difficulty taking you seriously because it took several times to get you to even answer the question of what position it was. Here's the thing. If you say, I tried to redirect this so that we were just addressing myself and Aaron, because Aaron and I don't even agree on everything. I'm probably more socialist than he is, and I'm probably closer to communist than he is, although I'm not really there. I'm definitely anti-capitalist, but I don't pretend to know what a good solution is. But as I mentioned, I'm a secular humanist. It's weird for you to say that we have murderous positions, and then when I ask you what they are, you say, I don't know, we'd have to get to know each other first. Maybe you should have got to know us before you accused us of having murderous positions. Maybe you should have actually engaged and had a conversation about the positions we had before you decided to try to slander us or attack us. That's not the way to have a conversation. We're not going to get anywhere. So here, you sit there quietly while we wait on their calls, and I'll let you get to know me, and I'll also let you get to know Aaron. So, hi, Manu. I'm Matt. I was raised in a predominantly Southern Baptist Christian home. I walked down the aisle at the age of 5, accepted Jesus into my heart, was active in the church all the way through my high school years, went in the Navy. I was a full-on Rush Limbaugh ditto head conservative for a number of years while I was in the Navy. Eventually, I got out. I went to work in the tech industry. I lost my job there. And I thought that God was punishing me for not becoming a preacher because my family thought I was going to be a preacher and people in my church thought I was going to be a preacher. And so I set out to become a preacher and do whatever it was that God wanted me to do. In the process, I found that I did not have good reasons for my religious beliefs, that there's no good reason. Oh, Manu ran away. Well, I'm going to keep telling you the story because clearly Manu didn't want to get to know us. Manu's a fucking liar. So, it's good. While we're waiting on other calls, I'll finish up mine and Aaron can tell his life story. And then people will maybe know stuff. So I found out I didn't have good reason to believe in the God that I believed in. And I started exploring to find out maybe there was some other God. Maybe, what kind of God could I believe in? And that led me to studying philosophy and epistemology, various world religions, in the hopes that if in fact there was a God, I would be able to find out which one it was and how it was relevant to me and what I could do about it. Eventually, I realized that I had no good reason to believe, and I was having difficulty finding any good reason to believe. So I started this mission of interacting with people to help them correct the same mistakes that I'd made before, but also in the hopes that someone out there would, if in fact I was wrong, if in fact I had missed or overlooked something, and in fact I'd made an error in my thinking, be able to show me where I had made a mistake so that I could find what the truth was with regard to God or gods or religion or supernatural or whatever else. And that's how I got here. Um, Politically, I've shifted from being a right-wing conservative to pretty far left. And yet at no point, either when I was when I was a Christian and I was in the military, um, I was in favor of the death penalty, and I realized that war was kind of a necessary evil and that we needed to do this for protection. Later on, I learned that I'd been kind of lied to, and that a good chunk of what I had been involved with was just making the billionaires in the military-industrial complex wealthier as they continued to protect their own interest, ostensibly by helping other people in the world. And so when the national anthem plays, I stay seated. When it's time to pledge allegiance to the flag, I stay seated. I earned that right, but you know what? You don't have to earn that right. Everybody has that right just by virtue of what the Constitution protects. So I'm now pretty left. And you'd like to say, Manu, that I'm basically advocating for positions when you don't seem to know what positions I'm actually advocating for. I'm not in favor of murder. I'm not in favor of genocide, the way Israel is currently. I am not advocating for any of the murderous regimes, and all of the ones that you would have pointed to in a list, I would object to all of them. And so it's really strange to have someone suggest that I'm a party to something that I wasn't involved in and opposed. That's just weird to me. Aaron?
Oh, my life story is a bit boring. Long, long ago, there was a stone on top of a mountain. It was hit by lightning, and then I popped out of the stone when it just broke up. No, wrong story. Um, but background, like, my parents, grandparents, mostly card-carrying Democrats, especially on my mother's side. Um, Went to college, realized how right I was the whole time. uh, it's just, the great virtue of, being born in the correct family and coming out with the exact correct views right from the beginning. I do think I have evolved in many of my views, but I also feel that I have so much to learn and so much to modify on. So I'm not too dogmatic, so long as you got the facts to back things up. Want to show me where communism fails? Yep, I'll probably believe you. Want to show me where capitalism fails? Yep, I'll believe you when you show me the evidence. Yep, I'm easily persuadable either way. You want to tell me that Ayn Randian libertarianism is right? You probably don't got the evidence for that. Want to tell me that communism has never actually been tried? That's going to be a hard sell for me. But you know what? I don't claim to know all the answers. Call in and persuade me.
Yep, we do have a caller. I will say, Manu, it's a terrible shame that whoever did whatever they did to you to make it so that you are absolutely incapable of having any sort of conversation about an actual problem without directly and falsely attacking the people you're talking to right from the outset. That is a travesty. I hope you get some help. All right. Rob is calling from California. Pronouns are him. Wants to talk about finding comfort in the recycling of atoms from the beginning of the universe after he dies. Hey, Rob, you're on with
Hello.
Dr. Aaron Adair and maybe me.
Okay, well, thank you both. It's great to talk to you both, and I appreciate you being here. I did want to run something past Dr. Adair. I've sort of had an epiphany regarding life and death. I'm getting older. I'm in my 60s now, and, people in the generation preceding me are starting to pass away, and I'm thinking about my own self and my children and whatnot. And I have this question that's tied to physics, and so I hope I'm on the right path, but maybe I'm not. And before I go telling everybody else about my great epiphany, which I guess I'm kind of doing now, but before I tell the people in my own personal circle, I'm wanting to make sure that I actually have the facts right, because I may be wrong. So here's what I've kind of come to. I've been a lifelong atheist, and one of the great aha moments of my young life was watching the original Cosmos series back in 1980. And if you saw that, then you probably remember Carl Sagan saying, "We are all made of star stuff." And that was really an aha moment for me and my family when we heard that, because it all made sense considering that, the birth of the universe and that atoms pass through stars and supernovas and everything else. And that's what made up the Earth. And so that's what makes us up. And so thinking more about this, I've come to the conclusion that, although my mind and my body and everybody else's will cease to exist when we die, the atoms that are in my body right now and everybody else's are really just kind of making a temporary home in our bodies, and that those atoms are on a journey that stretches all the way back to the beginning of the universe, and that journey is going to continue after we're dead until at least the end of the universe. Who knows what happens after that? And that some of the atoms in me right now probably were in potentially thousands, if not millions, of prehistoric plants and animals and different geologic stages throughout time. And to me, that's amazing, just thinking about there could be dinosaurs or pre-dinosaurs or whatever that were roaming around on the earth or in the oceans, or plants that had the same atoms that are in me right now. And that these atoms are going to continue long after I'm gone, and maybe even get blasted out to space and land in other planets and maybe evolve into something else at some other point and continue this chain of existence. And to me, that's amazing. And just thinking about that gives me great comfort that, yes, maybe, I won't know what's going on, but who knows? The chicken that I ate when I was 5 years old didn't know what was going to happen to those atoms, but they're in me right now, some of them anyway. And so that's it. I feel like I'm a giant recycler, but I'm part of that giant chain. And so, Dr. Adair, I'm wondering if I'm off base, or if you think that this is the way that things kind of work.
I would say largely yes, but I'm going to put in some extra info and caveats, because like everything in science and in the law, we should always have a footnote there that says it's complicated. So first, the thing that makes things a bit interesting, because you were mentioning about like the air you breathe, the water you drink. In this glass of water, at least one of the atoms of this water was pissed out by Napoleon Bonaparte. And the same for every other person, in our grand history. We've all had the privilege of sharing the various resources on this surface, and they have spread around enough that, yes, when I drink this water, I am drinking so much of human history, as well as, probably some dinosaur piss. Not too salty.
Okay, good.
The
Now,
good thing is
here's
that
the caveat.
we know because homeopathy is nonsense. Water doesn't have a memory, so it doesn't remember it used to be dinosaur piss.
Yes. And hopefully it's been filtered at least once. Out here in Boston, there's some large water treatment stuff there. So I've seen it in action. Now, it's not the case, though, that every atom that you have is going to be recycled, because some of the atoms in your body are unstable. If you eat bananas, some of that potassium is a radioactive isotope, and it will decay. So eventually, some of those atoms will break down into other atoms. But that's relatively small fraction of things. But you are right that basically we are made out of material. We are recycling stuff that was here before, and the stuff that will come after us will be using the same sorts of material. A little bit of the material here on Earth does slowly escape, and new material from the rest of space does slowly also accumulate here on Earth. There's a little bit of exchange here, but the vast majority of the stuff here on Earth has been here for the last 4.5 billion years. And we get to share all of this stuff with each other. And also, because some of us are better at sharing than others, some of us fight over what we have here. And it's in many ways our duty as humans to figure out how we're actually going to share our time, space, energy, resources, and ideas that actually make this life worth living. So I think that more than anything is how we give our life meaning, how we wake up in the morning, see what we have, what we're going to do with it, and how we're going to interact with and share it with others.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you for clarifying as well. And you brought up a good point, because I do eat bananas. So with the potassium breaking down, if it does break down into another element, is it not still existing in the universe, so to speak, and just in a different form?
Yes, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, it's different atoms, and the total mass is a little bit different, because in that fission process, that a little bit of the mass is lost and becomes energy. But that's why I say overall, you could say the material is still being recycled. It's just the nature of that material does change at least a little bit throughout your life and definitely throughout the age of the Earth. And occasionally we also collect some interesting new stuff. I was just seeing an interesting bit of science that there was a larger accumulation of plutonium discovered in a certain rock layer. And this led us to determine, oh, this must have been when the Earth had passed through the remains of some sort of supernova or neutron star collision, because we've seen those and they actually produce plutonium. And so for this layer to exist and still to be around, it must have been within the last like couple million years, less than that. And we just happened to pass through the leftovers of a titanic collision in our celestial backyard.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's kind of what I was thinking is that, yeah, we're not just even on the Earth, but cosmically recycling everything all the time. And over billions and billions of years, the atoms that are in us right now are going to continue to get recycled and maybe sometime used for some other organic life form, but maybe not. But even at that, it's amazing. It'll be in the night sky of some other planet maybe someday. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And your expertise is greatly appreciated. I'll share my epiphanies with some other people and see what they think. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Spread the good word.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Oh, and Matt, just because I'm noticing it, you still have your murderous question above your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I should take that down. It makes it difficult for it's frustrating because we lost a caller and I was really, really optimistic. I was sitting here saying, hey, somebody wants to call in and suggest that a position we have is problematic or awful. And I knew from the start this was going to be not just a contentious call, but an especially contentious and problematic call. And it was because this person had called before to suggest that we were as bad or worse even than the KKK. And I wasn't here for that. I don't really know how it got there. I'm wondering what's going on. And by that, I mean, thank you. By that, I mean, once upon a time, I've been doing this for 20 years. Once upon a time, we'd get calls where people would say, oh, hey, I believe in this and here's why. And you could have a discussion. And in the last few years, it's gotten to the point where not just like the fighting over political stuff, which I think is completely warranted. I think there's real, like serious dangers. Like anybody who calls in and suggests that I'm as bad as the KKK, when I'm standing up against both the KKK and the fascist extremists and the people who are trying to destroy the Constitution, the ones who are labeling me violent domestic extremist, even though I have the closest I come to violence was, wow, I can't even tell. And yet being accused of, oh, your positions are just as bad as this or that. Cool. What are my positions? I don't know. We'd have to get to know each other. It's, how does this happen? What is going on where people are so convinced that they know and understand a position and somebody else, and then when put under fire, when not even really in a hostile sense, but just, hey, can you justify that? Not only are they completely unwilling and incapable of saying, here's what justifies that, there's not even an attempt. It's just like, let me repeat another assertion. Where have we failed in the education system where we have created a world where people cannot or will not even begin to say, oh, why do I believe that? Well, because of this. Like if I were to ask you, Here's something I don't understand. Why are you convinced, well, assuming you are, that quantum entanglement is real?
In part because we have not just a few well-designed experiments for this, but decades of refinements in those experiments, starting from the late 70s, early 80s up till now, where we try to find every single loophole, every single caveat, to the point that it actually won the Nobel Prize, I think in 2022, in those sorts of experiments, looking at photons, looking at electrons, and looking for any sorts of effects, any sorts of loopholes for how we can be doing this, and any exceptions that we might be finding from there. So uh, if you want the actual experiments, I would need to go and like say, oh, this paper from Nature, this paper from Physics
Right.
Letters. I would need to do that, but this has been literally part of experiments from before I was born for decades, with people arguing and screaming at each other about how to interpret them, to the point that we now have come to a consensus and said, yeah, those people over there, give them $1 million. They did a good job.
Would you say it's fair or not unreasonable to suggest that quantum mechanics is the most well supported, bizarrely counterintuitive, and difficult to understand um, model in all of science?
If it's not, I have a hard time thinking what would take its place. General relativity is also really hard and counterintuitive in many ways, the fact that space and time are so warpable. But the idea that you can just walk through a wall with some non-zero probability, the such bizarreness about double slits experiments and observational effects, the interpretations that imply an infinity of worlds, or that somehow wave functions just collapse because you happen to look at it. What even is the observer is itself mysterious. Yeah, if quantum mechanics isn't the most counterintuitive, it is definitely the one that needs to make you stop and pause the most.
And I'm wondering, and then we'll get to a caller because we've got a theist on the phone here. I was building up to this before the theist called in, so Justin, hang tight. We'll get to you in just a second. Um, for the for the various common God models, where people essentially think that they have varying degrees of reliable evidential warrant that they have in some way or another interacted with a God, isn't that, if it were true, wouldn't not trying to figure out how does God work? That's not the question, because that's like saying how does quantum mechanics work? But to demonstrate that God does work, shouldn't that be like orders of magnitude simpler to do and understand than anything in quantum mechanics?
At least for humans, because we're fundamentally talking about minds communicating with minds. And if anything, that's what our minds are the most evolved and trained to do, because we're a social species. Clearly, we, two social animals, are able to interact with each other, and we don't have to go to university to do that. So one would think that, yes, if we are communing with some other kind of mind, let's call it mega mind, copyright not to be infringed. It should be straightforward that we are doing that sort of communing. But considering that everyone comes back and says the Megamind told them something else, and some of us don't hear the Megamind talking to them at all, that is weird. That is even weirder than quantum mechanics.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see how this goes, because we have callers, and there's other callers getting ready to line up, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Justin is a theist, pronouns are he, him, wants to argue in defense of theism. Justin, welcome to the show. You're on with Dr. Adair and myself. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hunky dory.
Not too bad. Which God are we, or which version of theism are you going to argue for, and how?
I was going to argue for this, like a single, all powerful God that watches over the universe. But personally, I identify, I follow more Buddhist teachings, because Buddhism is not a religion; it's just a philosophy. But I do also identify as a theist, like all powerful, all seeing God that watches over the universe. So I'm going to be arguing for that tonight.
Okay, doke. So we're looking for you to defend a single, all-powerful God watching over the universe. Go for it.
Okay. are you well versed in the argument that the universe is fine-tuned, the fine-tuned argument?
I don't know why that's relevant, but yes.
Okay, so I know you're probably well versed in this, so you have a good response. But in my understanding, the parameters that our current universe exists in, if gravity, the strength of gravity was a little bit more, a little bit less, and if the imbalance of dark matter and dark energy was slightly different in the universe, it would basically make it impossible for complex biological life to procreate. So that leads many people, including myself, to believe that some sort of a higher power fine-tuned the universe for a life to be able to exist. So what would be your counter-argument to that?
I'm gonna let Aaron address the science part of it, but I do want to ask this. If we assumed that your fine-tuning argument demonstrated that the fine-tuning was done by an intelligence, how does that show that it's a single intelligence, that it is in fact all-powerful, and that it is currently watching over the universe?
Well, a being that's strong enough to literally tune the dynamics of the universe and the laws of nature itself, our models of physics shows that like our equations are constant throughout the universe. Just natural reasoning would state that something as powerful, something that could do something like that would be an all-powerful being. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure, like,
I don't agree. So first of all,
in what
even if you're, I'm going to let Aaron address the fine-tuning stuff here in just a second, but even if we were to agree that the universe appears fine-tuned, that does not show that it was fine-tuned by a single being, and it doesn't show that that being was all-powerful, just that it was sufficiently powerful, or if it's not a being, that whatever it was that did it is sufficiently powerful, and in no way does that show that the being is currently watching over the universe.
Okay, that's fair enough, but do you think
Okay, but you
that
said you were going to be defending, you said you were going to defend
right?
a single all-powerful God watching over the universe, and you've failed on single, you've failed on all-powerful God, and you've failed on watching over the universe. So I don't know how fine-tuning is relevant, but just for fun, Aaron, you want to dig in on fine-tuning?
There's perhaps a dozen different things that could be said here, but let me just hit the highlight reel. First off, when we say that there is fine tuning and we say it's fine tuning specifically for life, that is not demonstrated. First off, life can only exist, or at least life as we know it can only exist on the tiniest fraction of the surface of some kinds of planets. The vast majority of the universe is instantly lethal to complex life. All you have to do is go up 100 kilometers and you're not alive. Go down 100 kilometers, you're not alive. Heck, I can't even like go in the water and stick around for all that long. The vast majority of the mass of the universe is in stars and in black holes, and that's just the baryonic matter, not even thinking about dark matter there. So vast majority of space, instantly lethal. It's vacuum and radiation. Not good for life. On the other hand, it's extremely good for generating black holes. This is actually one of the interesting things pointed out by the physicist Lee Smolin, that the parameters of the universe are just as well fine-tuned for black hole production. So you could say, from the exact same physics, the universe is designed for producing black holes. But no one uses this as an argument for theism. Why? Because they want to get to a particular conclusion. But more importantly, a few other things. One, we don't know if the constants of the universe can actually even be changed. Maybe they are actually something pinned down and fundamental in the same way that pi is, and you can't adjust that. That's a possibility that we can't demonstrate is not the case. And let me just hop to the most important thing. Weirdly enough, fine-tuning is actually against supernatural creation. Because here's the thing. In a universe with observers, on naturalism, the constants have to be consistent with life. But on supernaturalism, God could make life in that universe even going against the parameters. Basically, if God is all-powerful, then he can make life exist in a universe that's inhospitable to life. God could make me walk around on the moon without a spacesuit right now because God is all powerful. But apparently, that's not the kind of universe we live in. Instead, we live in a universe that requires these constants to be fine-tuned. And the fact of the matter is, on supernaturalism, there's no reason to expect everything in nature to be consistent with life. We could be here without those parameters being fine-tuned for life. But in a universe on naturalism, the parameters have to be consistent with life on Earth under naturalism because that's the only way life could emerge on naturalism. So weirdly enough, fine-tuning is actually an argument against supernatural creation.
Okay, if I may respond, there's a lot to go over there. I do hear what you're saying. As a counter argument, I will say this: if we're talking probabilities, right, and just like mathematically probable, if God does not exist, then it was extremely likely that the universe would permit life. But if God does exist, right, a theistic God, then it's very likely that the universe would be fine-tuned to permit complex life to evolve.
Not
Therefore,
true, because
I feel
here's
like
the thing.
if they logically...
That's not the case. Again, as I noted, God could make it so life could exist in a universe that's inhospitable to life. It could be the case that the constants of nature are inconsistent with life by natural means. And that's the important thing. The whole point about fine-tuning is that life can emerge naturally. But the thing is, on naturalism, that's the only way life could exist, coming about naturally. For God to say, I'm going to fine-tune the universe to act like it's going to produce life naturally is not expected. That has to be forced into the God hypothesis, which makes that hypothesis either improbable or itself fine-tuned. You had to fine-tune God to get your fine-tuning.
And that's a very fair point. I was arguing with my friend a couple of nights ago, and he's a Muslim, right? And he was telling me that only Earth could support life, and that's why the Quran is real and all this nonsense, right? And I told him, essentially, not disrespect everybody, with all due respect, I'm saying that, I told him this: in another planet, life would evolve in term with different parameters. Like if the planet is a frozen planet, life would evolve, to adapt to the cold. And if the planet was like a super hot planet with volcanoes, life would evolve to that. So my point is that the entire universe, and I understand what you said, but like just as a counterpoint, the parameters of gravity and our subatomic particles being held together by these dark matter and like all these forces are so acute that if we're talking pure probability, right, that there is a very high chance that the universe could have had no life whatsoever, that stars couldn't even form. And if stars couldn't form, galaxies couldn't form. Like the biggest empty spaces in the universe are something called voids, right? Voids are something in between filaments and superclusters of galaxies, because galaxies form together in clusters and superclusters, and in between them we have what we call voids, which are literally millions upon millions of light years of virtually empty space. And if the parameters of the universe were different, the entire universe could be like that. So I'm not saying anything you're saying was wrong, because you made a lot of strong points, but I'm just saying if we're talking about in terms of probability, there's a good probable chance that a higher power tuned the universe so human beings could be on Earth and
Justin,
life could
the thing is, though, I actually went through the probability. I actually gave you the probability math that on naturalism, seeing that the constants of nature are consistent with life is 100% expected. 100%. On supernaturalism, there's no reason to expect that. I'm saying by probability theory, and I'm specifically using Bayes' theorem here, and I'm comparing the evidence on the two background hypotheses, naturalism and supernaturalism. On naturalism, seeing that the universe is fine-tuned for life, consistent with the laws of nature, is 100% expected. Because if naturalism were false, if the constants of nature weren't conducive to life, then we would definitely not see life in this universe. So seeing that that life is consistent with the universe that allows for life is 100% expected. On supernaturalism, again, God could make it so that gravity is 1 billion times more powerful, but he makes it so it's different here for the sun and for the earth, so everything works here just fine. That it could just locally be okay for us. Again, if God is all-powerful, that's what could happen. Now, the other thing, though, when you say that it's improbable that our universe ends up this particular way, two things. One, we don't know if the constants of nature could be different. There could be the case that they're actually geometric results in the same way that pi is. And more importantly, even if they can change, you don't know what the range of possible values are and the probability density of that. And this is actually a fundamental problem. If you don't know what the probability distribution is, you literally cannot say how improbable any of those values are or range of values are, which fundamentally makes this argument a no-go because you can't tell me what is the probability distribution for the gravitational constant. Nobody knows what that is.
I would also add very quickly, this ties into what Dr. Adair was saying earlier. The planet that we're living on has some places that are conducive to life, both the evolution of life and surviving, etc. You mentioned that there are spaces in the universe that are inhospitable to life. On naturalism, you would expect to find life where the conditions allow for that life. On supernaturalism, there's no reason not to expect that I couldn't be existing out in one of those inhospitable, lifeless voids. If God wants me, or this all-powerful being or whatever wants to put me out there or create me out there or put an entire group of people just floating out there with different capacities, I don't see any reason why that couldn't be the case. So once again, we're still like, normally I would just ask, I don't know how you determine that it's more likely for a supernatural explanation than a natural one when you have zero supernatural explanations to explore to determine how probable they are. But since Aaron's already given kind of the non-calculated, but just, like colloquial odds, and we extend that, if there was an all-powerful being, why would that all-powerful being seem to be completely limited in where it places life based on whether or not the features of that area are conducive to life, for life to survive naturally?
Wow. Well, that's a bit of a curveball there. I never really thought about it that deep. That's fair enough. I'm not like I want to make this clear. I'm not saying that the naturalistic explanation is improbable. There could be absolutely no God, and we could be here, absolutely, having like, just naturally through evolution. The universe came from, like everything is just like a natural explanation. One thing leads to another. But from a mathematical perspective, like probability-wise, do you acknowledge that there is at least a chance, even if it's like a 1% chance, that a theistic explanation is possible for the origins of the universe and life, as to meet you in the middle?
No, because, and I'm not saying it's not possible. Possibility needs to be demonstrated, and so does impossibility. I have no idea if a theistic cause is possible or not. And so I cannot agree that it's possible. And by this, I mean empirically, not logically possible. There may not be any logical contradiction in it, but whether or not it is in fact empirically possible is another issue. And so until, like when we observe something and it's time to make a list of candidate explanations for how or why this occurred, sometimes we may not have any candidate explanations for an observation. We may need to do more investigating. In other cases, we can only list the candidate explanations that we already know and understand are possible candidate explanations. We don't get to say, oh, what are the candidate explanations for the origin of the universe? Well, let's include God and universe creating pixies and aliens from another multiverse. And we have no reason to include or exclude any of those as likely or probable or even possible. So when you ask me, would you concede that it's possible? No, but I'm not saying it's impossible. The possibility of a theistic explanation needs to be demonstrated. And granted, I've only been doing this for 20 some odd years, but in the entire history of the world, I don't see where anyone has demonstrated any sort of empirical possibility for anything supernatural or anything theistic. Are you aware of some?
I'm not, but I think I have something that's close. And I want to move the conversation to my next point.
Okay.
And I don't want to annoy you because I know you've heard this from 100 different people, probably a lot smarter than me. Okay, I wanted to talk about quantum for a second. And I know you're tired of this
Okay,
argument.
Aaron,
You've
I'm
probably
playing a
heard
game
it
of
a
chess.
million times. So in quantum physics, right? And I'm not going to pretend to be like, any type of expert on this, but
That's all right. We
as
have an
far as I'm
expert
aware,
here.
tell me.
No, I'm not the expert. I'm going to stop talking now.
Oh, I'm not the expert either. This is as far as I understand, because I'm being humble in this, but as far as the research I've done, right? In quantum mechanics, there's something called superposition, in which a particle can exist in two places at the same time. Now, conventional rationality and our observations of the universe don't align with this. Like if we observe the natural universe and the laws of physics, it's physically impossible for a particle to be in two places at the same time. But it happens, right? And then there's also I forgot what I forgot what it's called exactly, but there's also this concept that when a particle is being observed, that it behaves differently than when it's not being observed. Now, between superposition and that second observation I just named, it literally makes zero sense. And top level world class physicists are still trying to work this out. So my larger point is this: is that yes, the argument for a theistic God seems irrational and it doesn't make sense, but there are things in quantum in our universe that don't make sense, right? If superposition and the fact that a particle is behaving differently because it's being observed doesn't make sense, why can't we take another step to, go as far as to say that there is a theistic God out there, like it doesn't make sense, right? But there are things in our universe that we can't explain as well. So what would be your argument to that?
So a few things. I'm going to kind of answer this in reverse order. Not understanding one thing doesn't make another thing unrelated probable. I don't understand quantum mechanics doesn't make Bigfoot more likely, for example. It's kind of a non sequitur in that sort of way. The thing that makes God probable or improbable are the specifics about that kind of hypothesis and our background knowledge about those sorts of things. As for quantum mechanics, it's counterintuitive, and there are arguments about the interpretation of it. But here's the thing: when it comes to actually making predictions and knowing what to expect from quantum mechanics, it is the most precisely and checked theory in all of science. One of the amazing calculations that was done in quantum field theory is looking at the anomalous magnetic moment of the electron orbiting the hydrogen atom, which sounds like a whole lot of words. And fundamentally, if you take the naive calculation, you'd say, oh, this magnetic moment should just have an exact value of 2. We go and we measure it's not actually 2, and then we realize, oh, it's because we actually have to account for all of the fluctuations in the vacuum itself. And we have been able to calculate that down to at least the 15th decimal place and experimentally verify it down to about that level of precision. That's like knowing the distance from where I am in my office here in the greater Boston area to London and know where that location I'm going to be in London is down to the thickness of a human hair. That does not sound like people who don't really know what quantum mechanics says or implies if it can make predictions of that absurd level of precision and are able to go out and validate it to that level of precision. Also, it's not the case that when you observe a thing, it changes its nature. What happens is that interacting with it, you have changed its entanglement with other bodies. So the thing is, when you are observing a thing, it's actually an interaction. It doesn't feel like it because we're such macroscopic objects, but when you're looking at something, it's not an passive thing. Light has to bounce off something. Light carries energy. So when light is bouncing off an electron, it's going to bump the electron, to use somewhat imprecise terms. And so by interacting with the electron, that's going to have an effect. That's what quantum mechanics is able to account for. I think specifically the experiment you were probably thinking about was the double slit experiment, where you're firing either light or you're firing electrons through two slits. When you are not measuring which slits the particles go through, you get an effect that looks like it's two waves interacting with each other. And if you do measure and try to figure out which slit the particles go through, then it becomes two slits that looks like just single slit interference patterns. So that is what people point to and say, oh, by looking at it, I'm changing the physics. It's like when you're looking at it, you're interacting with it. And by interacting with it, you've undone the entanglement effect. So this is not mysterious in that way, but the fundamental interpretation of quantum mechanics, whether we go with the Copenhagen interpretations, pilot wave theory, Everettian many worlds interpretation, that is definitely highly debated. There is no consensus on at this point. That I will definitely give you. But I will note this, that we don't know the best interpretation of quantum mechanics doesn't really add any probability to God, because what God is not a quantum particle, and it's not a case of observing or not observing God somehow changes its nature. It's that, oh, we're talking about a mind without relying on a physical body. We have no evidence that anything like that exists there. Every single mind that we have interacted with has a body. So I want to answer a question that Matt gave a different answer to about, well, what's the probability of God? And I would say the highest prior probability I can give to God is 1 in 100 billion, because we have 100 billion examples of minds. All of them have depended on physical bodies. I'm talking about all Homo sapiens that have existed since our species has been roaming about. Every single human has had a physical body. We have no confirmed examples of minds independent of physical bodies. And if you say God is a mind without dependence on a physical body, then I have to say, well, I have all this prior information, and it tells me, hey, this isn't how minds are. Your prior is no better than 100 billion, 1 in 100 billion, which is absurdly small, which means you got to have hella good evidence for me to take it seriously. And everything I've looked at has either been not evidence at all or evidence against. So when the prior probability is low and there is no evidence that points in the opposite direction, then, like I say, best case scenario, 1 in 100 billion, too small to even buy a lottery ticket for.
Wow, that was a very well explained explanation, sir. I got to give you that. I don't want to spend too much time on quantum. I just that was my general point is that there's things that are unexplained in quantum, and it leaves things for things to be unexplained in the universe. But I don't want to waste your because there's other people on queue, so I don't want to waste your time too much. As far as quantum goes, I feel like that conversation reached as far as we can get. I wanted to ask you this question. Where do you see human life as unique or special in the place in the universe? Does it have a special place in the universe, or do you just feel like it's random? Chemistry leads to biology, single cell organisms, and I believe in evolution. I come from go at it from a theistic perspective, where I feel like God uses evolution as a mechanism to let life evolve. So what is your view on human life in where does human life have a place in the universe? Do you view it as special, or is it just a process of chemistry and time?
Well, I have to do this. I have a book. Aliens and Religion, Where Two Worlds Collide. Sure. So this was co-authored with my friend Jonathan M.S. Pierce, where we look at the theological and philosophical implications of aliens existing. And I run the numbers and I say, yeah, more likely than not, there are other intelligent civilizations out there somewhere in the universe. And if we go by the Copernican principle of the advanced civilizations that have existed or will exist, we're probably average. So we're probably not special. We're probably not the most intelligent or the least intelligent. We're probably not the most violent or the least violent. Because we don't know otherwise, you're more likely to be average than exceptional. So if there's other aliens out there, and there probably are, some of them are better than us in certain ways, some of them worse than us in certain ways. And we won't know for sure where we are on the galactic IQ test until we can start chatting with each other, which unfortunately may not happen because the telephone lines are pretty long if you want to talk to just even the nearest star system, let alone on the other side of the galaxy, let alone the next nearest major galaxy.
I don't even think we have to go to aliens. If you just looking right now, not counting the fact that, I don't know, 90 some odd % of every species that has ever existed has gone extinct. You're looking at maybe 8 million species on Earth currently. And each of them has, there are mountains of similarities that show there's nothing about us that seems to be particularly special. We just happen to be better, as far as we can tell, until we run across something else, at a particular type of thinking, problem solving, of cognition that undoubtedly is extraordinary when you speak relatively. I am, and even the dumbest caller I've ever talked to in 20 years is vastly more intelligent than a pigeon. Just from what we understand about cognitive process and abstract thinking and problem solving, but it may not be as wide as we think. For example, crows are incredibly intelligent and are known to use tools
Right.
and solve problems. What's that?
No, I said right. I said right.
Yeah. Known to use tools and stuff like that. There are animals here on Earth that are faster than us, that live longer than us, that are better at reproducing than us, that reproduce with fewer genetic divergences and abnormalities.
Efficiency.
And there are some that are worse than us, and all these things. If that's just the case right here on this one planet where we have life, and only life in limited, areas and aspects. What is it like in the vastness of the universe when we are a tiny, irrelevant speck? To propose that humans are somehow special when we already know that even if we were the only planet with life, Earth is not particularly special, other than it's special to us because we're here. And so I don't see us as, I see us as special to us. I don't see us as special to the universe or in any grand scheme of things. And who knows how many other, I mean, Aaron's basically saying that we're odds are we're probably average. But even if we were the most intelligent and most advanced, like, civilization and technology in the entire universe, that still wouldn't necessarily mean that we were special. It just might mean that we were lucky enough to get there to that level of understanding first.
Okay. To that, I would say that, there's a couple of things. I think that, me personally, in my view, and I could be wrong, I put human life and the human spirit in a very, like, a special category in the universe. Like, not to get too personal, but, like, I went to the military, like, I've seen things, like, I've lived a pretty crazy life. I've been homeless, but now I'm doing financially well. I have a great family. And I know that these arguments are just thrown out usually because it's just, nobody cares about personal antidotes. But I think that the human spirit is strong, and that could be a byproduct of evolution. And there could be other intelligent civilizations in the universe. But I just feel like the argument that human life is different and special in the universe is just something that I just hold on to. And I feel like I encourage other people to look more deeper into this, that where humanity is today, right? How do we know where we're going to be in 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years? In 1,000 years, humanity could potentially be so further ahead of anything. Oh my God. Oh man. Are you kidding me? I am so sorry, sir. I am so sorry. I literally am getting, oh my God, I have to help my mom. I don't know if you guys would have me back. I would love to call back and have this conversation, but I just have to go right now.
Absolutely. I'm sorry you have to
Oh
go.
my
Call
God.
again another time.
Mom. Oh, wow, son. Please, if you guys would have me, I'd love to call back. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much.
Go take care of your mother.
Definitely take care of your mother.
Hey, can I butt in
I
really
will
quick?
address that real quick. I'm a little disappointed because I have no idea. Like, I value human life, seemingly mostly because I'm human, and the people that I love and care about and interact with and benefit from and try to benefit are also human. But I don't just care about human life. When it comes to the human spirit, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to discuss it and get an actual answer, because I don't know what you mean. And so if you watch this later, I don't know if you mean the metaphoric human spirit, which I have no problem with. It's poetry. It is, oh, the human spirit is, unstoppable. If you mean human spirit in the sense of some kind of soul or spirituality, I not only don't think any such thing exists, I think we have pretty good reason to suggest that nothing like that exists, but it doesn't matter. I also served in the military for 8.5 years. And while I haven't been homeless, I've been close. And this isn't a competition. I'm not comparing. I'm just pointing out the areas where we have at least some similar experiences. But when you suggested that people look deeper into it, I do too. I think getting an understanding of the way the universe works and trying to figure out what our place is, how special we are or are not, how valuable we are or are not, how to understand how we got here, where we're going, what we're doing. This is one of the reasons why we do this stuff. I'm assuming, I don't want to speak for him, I'm assuming that those are at least tied to the reasons that Aaron is a scientist. And it's the reason why I've spent 20 years asking people, hey, if there's a God I want to know, how can I know? And we started that call with, he was going to defend theism in the sense of a single, all-powerful God watching over the universe. And while there were lots of interesting points and some arguments that were, I think, fairly successfully rebutted, none of those arguments, even if they had stood without rebuttal, would have demonstrated that there was a single, all-powerful God watching over us now, which is fine, because when we talk about these things, when people call in and say, oh, here's what I believe, they're quite often going to go with the God of classical theism, or let me do the shortcut, or because I think genuinely most people don't have a good concept and a good way of describing what it is they actually believe. I think we're engaged in a constant equivocation fallacy where a whole bunch of people are running around saying, I believe in God, or I believe in a higher power, or I believe in a single all-powerful God watching over the universe, however they phrase it. And most of them, not all, have not dug in to think about what that phrase actually means, what the consequences of it are, how they would demonstrate that it's true. And we just assume that because you say you believe in God and Jim Bob says he believes in a God, that you must be talking about the same thing. And I think quite often we're absolutely not talking about the same thing. This is why I have such a huge problem with the term spiritual. I don't think there's anything spiritual in a literal sense. And the word gets used in so many different ways by so many different people that I think it has become an absolutely useless term that doesn't really tell us anything. In a metaphoric sense, in a poetic sense, oh, I'm spiritual. I still don't know what that means to people, which is why I keep asking. But if it's kind of hey, I look at the world with wonder. Well, so do I, but I don't see what the justification would be to call that spiritual, especially when that term has baggage that ties to religion, that ties to pseudoscience, that ties to woo. Matter of fact, most common usages are incredibly problematic. And so I don't mean this to be insulting, but I've said it countless times before. So if you're insulted, sorry, I suck. I find that the people who say I'm spiritual but not religious, or that they are cowardly avoiding recognizing and acknowledging to others that they don't believe in not just religions, but gods and the supernatural in that area, because they've been taught by religions, by social conformity, that it would be rude to suggest all of these God believers are somehow off their rocker and believing something without warrant. I can understand why it would be rude to suggest that everybody who believes in a God is just irrational. But that doesn't change the fact that they may well be irrational. And as far as I can tell, they are in fact irrational. No, in the entire history of the world, we've had zero demonstrations of a God. despite the fact that still to this day, the overwhelming majority of people believe in some version of some God, and a lot of others who don't pay lip service to it with, I'm spiritual, but not religious. I'm not spiritual and I'm not religious. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but I will just as soon as someone demonstrates that there's a good reason for me to do so.
Hey, I need to butt in really quick. So it turns out I had capped the calls at 1. This whole time, we've only had room for 1 call. So if you've been trying to call and it's been giving you a busy signal, that was
Oh my goodness.
my fault. And so if you are a theist, please give us a call. I've had a few atheists call in wanting to do a devil's advocate. Do not. I literally never need a call for somebody wanting to defend a belief that they don't actually hold. But if you are a theist, lines are now open. So actually open.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday show after dark. Even though we've been on for a little while, lines are now completely open. You're not just limited to 1, which means we don't have to just have one person occupying a line to tell us how we're just as bad as the Nazis, even while opposing them. And while we had a great call just a minute ago, if you were getting a busy signal, you should call in right now because we've got at least 40 minutes left, but we can go beyond that. Slight little technical snafu. I've been sitting here all night going, wow, there's 1,400 people watching live now, and we got 1 caller at a time. And I'm like, when is it gonna light up? And now we know why. But we can't fire Arden because I love her, and she's just getting back in the swing of things.
I just looked over and saw 467 busy signals, 21 blocked, and I was like, what the hell? And I was like, oh, call 1 out of 1.
Oh wow.
Yep, that's my bad.
467 busy signals. All right, so
to be fair, I'm 400 of those calls.
That still means there's 67 other calls. All right. So while we're waiting for all the phone lines to queue up, I don't even know how that happens. Everybody, you can put an F in chat for Arden, and this time it's for fail. Epic fail. From Epic Loot. All right. Well, while we're queuing those up, I know that I'm going to give a million sermons on different subjects over the years. Aaron, I don't know that I know. Well, nope. We've already got calls queuing up. I was getting ready to ask you a thing, and I'm like, here we go. There's calls coming in. Do you find, and there's no wrong answer to this, I've already said what my opinion is. Do you find there's are you more lenient on there's a sensible, useful, I guess, use of the word spiritual that I might be missing, or that, you just don't care enough or whatever?
I think I feel the same way with you, that it's tangled up with too many wooey things that I can't agree with, that it automatically carries that baggage, even if I'm trying to secularize the term. So I don't use the term spiritual. It's got too much of that there. But what would be a good replacement? That I need to work out. But I would say not having a good replacement is not a good reason to keep using a term that would otherwise be perpetuating all of the nonsense that gets attached to it. Spiritualism, spiritual mediums, that there are spirits, because I am a materialist or a physicalist fundamentally. None of those things are real in the actually out there in the universe sort of thing, to the best of my knowledge. So using terms referring to things I don't think exist is unhelpful. But if you can come up with a better term or help us invent a term, if you want to slap together some Greek and Latin roots for us for a replacement term, I'm all ears.
No, I was with you right up to you. Like, let's throw some Greek and Latin. No, screw that. We don't need to go back to old dead languages and confuse things even more. No, I'm actually hoping that, some of the people I've interacted with, Brett Hartley, James Freycroft, others who disagree with me, I'm hoping that between us, we can come up with a term that is acceptable, that is also understood. Because I think it's not just the term that's a problem. It's people don't understand how it's being used. But we've got callers, including a theist caller right now. So let's Who knows how many of those busy signals were Dave, but Dave's calling from Texas. Pronouns are he, him, and Dave says the creator is light. How are you, Dave?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. How do we know the creator is light?
Well, I'm going from what is said, and I'm just going from what is said in the Bible in John. I want to point out, uh, I'm not an Orthodox Christian. Okay. I was raised. I feel like I should at least point out where I'm coming from, like point out kind of how I grew up, if that's all right. 59, so I'm probably a couple of years older than you, I think, Matt. I was
too.
raised in I was raised in a non-religious household, was free to believe whatever I wanted to. Air Force brat. My parents divorced when I was about 8. My dad stayed in the Air Force for 30 some years, retired as a chief master sergeant, got into defense contractors and working on some really interesting stuff that I may end up having to talk about here in a little bit, if we get pretty deep into this. But yeah, I was free to just free to believe whatever I wanted to. Didn't really know anything about religion. Early on, like I had a friend down the street that was Catholic, and he went to church like 3 times a week or something, and going to mass and going to confession and all this. And I remember back then even saying, why do you believe what's in this Bible, right? You know, people write the National Enquirer, right? And people wrote this book. I don't know how you can make sense of it all. And anyway, that was kind of how the way I saw things growing up. There were some things that I learned when I was young that kind of stuck with me. Learning about indigenous cultures, North America, South America, how they kind of saw a oneness in everything, that they were deeply connected to nature, they were connected to animals, they had deep respect for everything. And even though the outside world everything appeared separate, they felt like they were one with everything. And I thought that was pretty profound. And I've held on to that. I knew that. And then another thing I learned when I was about 9 or 10, you may remember this, King Tut was huge in pop culture because there was a exhibit going around everywhere. And I was fascinated with Egypt, just absolutely fascinated with it. Yeah. And so I remember learning back then that Egypt was kind of where all the sciences came out of, right? Astrology, not your daily horoscope astrology, but like the planetary or the cycles, the constellations, the ages, all that was cool. The geometry or mathematics, and then chemistry, alchemy, and even chemistry and alchemy getting their name from chem or chemet. Like Egypt was just known. I think it was known as the land of rich black soil or something like that. Anyway, I always felt like the ancient Egyptians knew a lot. Like there was something hidden in there somewhere, right? And so, anyway, as I got older, I graduated from high school in the 80s, I went to school for audio engineering for recording technology. So learned how to work in recording studios. And then, excuse me, trying to catch my breath.
And where are we getting to God and light?
Okay, well, light. So I got into light production, got into lighting, learned different things you could do with light and how you could create special effects with light, things like that. Ended up in IT in the late 90s, and I've been in IT ever since then. So I think we have something in common. I think you're in software development, if I'm not mistaken. So
I was for a while.
I'm not currently. With this. So, okay. So got married in 2002, and then my wife already had a couple of kids. My wife had been raised in and out of the church. And I remember one day, 2006 or somewhere in there, my wife said she wanted to start going to church. She wanted to raise her kids that way. And I was completely out. I was like, man, don't expect me to go every Sunday. We ended up finding the non-denominational church. And I'm sure you know, Westboro Baptist Church was like really big back then, like really or popular in the news a lot.
They were in the news. They were never big. It was 2 families.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. They were yeah, popular. They were definitely in the news, and I just thought, man, I don't want to be associated with anything like that. Please, I can't do that. And so my wife said, well, look, we'll try a couple of different churches around here. This is in North Texas, by the way. That's where I'm at. We went to a Baptist church. I felt so out of place. Felt like, all the people are going to be looking at me like I'm the sinner and all this other stuff. I don't belong here. We ended up finding a non-denominational church, and that it actually felt good to me. The music was good. I'm a musician, so I kind of liked the music they were playing. It was people show up in their blue jeans. It wasn't like you got to dress up, and I ended up kind of liking it and started learning some things. Now, when I was 13, I should probably back up a little bit. My introduction to the Bible was 1980. Mount St. Helens had just erupted, and I'm living in Texas. And that same year, we had a huge heat wave here. It was like record-breaking 40. Yeah.
We don't currently have other callers, but I genuinely just need to know how we know that the Creator is light.
Okay. Gotcha. I always felt like the Bible was created to intentionally sow division, to mislead people. And I felt like Jesus was teaching a truth that, if he existed, he was teaching the truth that would have got him and his buddies killed pretty much, right? I felt like the God in the Old Testament, or the Torah specifically, was not the same thing. That whoever put this book together, I shouldn't trust them. There was something not right about this. I felt like this guy was telling the truth about it. I feel like just deep down, he's telling the truth about something.
Dave?
I believe that. And okay, so let me get to this. I ultimately searched. And to me, I found Hermetic texts, and I believe Jesus was teaching ancient Egyptian knowledge. And when I made the connection in around 2010, 2012, working in IT, dealing with fiber optics, I thought, wow, that's an interesting coincidence that the John 1:5 says God is light. And John 1:1 talks about, in the beginning is the Word is with God, and the Word is God. And I could never understand. My Christian friends were saying, well, that's Jesus.
Is light
Jesus
sentient?
Is the Word. And I would say yes, actually, is what
How can we know that light is sentient? Because I'm not aware of any reason to, I'm not aware of any justification for thinking that light is a sentient agent.
Gotcha. Have you heard of biophotons?
No.
And microtubules.
Aaron?
Okay. I can't hear Aaron.
I wasn't saying anything. I was just listening to what you were going to explain.
Yeah, so what I discovered was the word logos, right? They translate this word logos to word. And I noticed again, 2010, 2012, I thought, it's interesting that they say word is with light, is with God, and God is light. I thought, well, that's interesting because word is information, and information is light. I know just being an IT person,
hey,
like,
Dave,
oh yeah, fiber optics. Yes.
Dave, I'm going to interrupt you for a couple seconds here.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact that you have interests and suspicions is completely irrelevant. The fact that the Bible says something is also completely irrelevant. We need to know why we should give a shit what the Bible says. You then, if you're going to say that, in John 5, it refers to the light, how do you know that's not metaphor? How do you know that light is sentient? How do you know that light, because I've got a light shining me in the face. Is this light a sentient agent?
Okay, I'll just get right to it then. I'm sorry. I was trying to connect dots and kind of show you how I came to this
I don't mean to be a dick, but you have connected no dots with regard to how we can know that creator is light.
Okay. Aaron made a point earlier to a previous caller about nothing has proven to have a mind that didn't have a body, correct? So
that was something I said, that there are no minds, as far as I know of, independent of physical bodies.
Gotcha. Are you familiar with a study by Harvard Medical School on a single-cell organism called Stentor russellii?
I'm not familiar with that, but I will point out that is a physical body if it's a cell.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. But it doesn't have a brain, and it doesn't have a neural network, right?
He didn't say that it required a brain or a neural network. He said physical.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a little confused by that.
Yeah, because Stentor russellii, while it has a behavioral hierarchy, apparently doesn't. First of all, I'm not convinced that the study in any way shows that it's sentient, because when we spot behavior or what appears to be behavior, that's not necessarily the same as sentience, and it's certainly not the same as a creative agent. But at the end of the day, light, I've changed the question two or three times now. Okay. There's a light shining in my face. Is it sentient? Sure. Yes or no?
I would say it's information.
No. Wow.
So I'll point out. Hey,
this is
so
no.
Logos means there's
no.
many words,
No.
Right?
No.
Word. Logic.
Is the light shining in my face sentient? Yes or no? I didn't ask you if it was information, did I?
Okay. Is it sentient? I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. Is it a creative agent?
Yes, light is a creative agent. Light creates matter. The Bright-Wheeler process
light,
proves that.
No, the agent.
Yes,
do you know what agent means?
Matter.
Do you know what agent means? Agent is a sentient thinking thing.
Mm-hmm.
You just said you don't know if it's sentient, but you do know it's a creative agent. That is a contradiction.
Okay. Are you familiar, I guess not, with biophotons and microtubules?
I don't know how that's relevant at this point, considering the claim you want to be making.
Because
I also need to note,
Dave's calling in to give a book report on all of his interests and is refusing to answer the question: how can we know that light is the creator of the universe?
To me, it's obvious.
I don't give a shit if it's obvious to you. Do you, Dave? Listen to me Dave, listen to me very carefully. If somebody thinks it's obvious, is that in any way an evidence-based justification for believing that it's true? The fact that somebody thinks something's obvious.
Okay.
Is that in any way a justification for thinking that something is true if somebody else thinks it's obvious?
No, not at all.
No. Right? Then why, when I asked you why the fuck we should believe it, did you say to you it's obvious? That's not relevant to why we should believe it.
To me, it's not. It doesn't matter whether. I'm not saying you should believe it. I'm not saying you should believe it at all.
Okay, go away, Dave.
You want to know what? Right? Are you familiar with bio? Like
Dave.
So
Dave.
Did you really?
Dave.
Oh my gosh.
Dave, are you going to fucking listen to me? Because I listened to your 8-minute story that was absolutely useless and said absolutely nothing. So here we go. The purpose of this show is for people to call in and say, hey, here's what I believe and why I think you should believe it. I just asked you why we should believe it, and you said you don't think we should, or you're not doing that. Do you think that Aaron and I should also be convinced that light is the creator of the universe? Yes or no?
The observable universe, not the universe. The observable universe. Yes, absolutely.
And how do you
Aaron,
justify that
at this
claim?
point, I am like a pubic hair from losing my Zen. So I'm so sick to death of asking the right questions and having callers refuse to answer those questions and instead be pedantic and shitty about it, because all I'm trying to do is figure out, how do you know and how should we know that light is the creator of the universe? But Dave needed to add the observable universe, as if that's fucking relevant to the question. Stop talking, Dave. Stop talking, Dave. Don't talk again until I tell you to. Dave had to add that as if it was relevant to the point. On that note, in order to make sure that I don't lose it and we have other theists calling, I'm going to back out of this conversation and see if Aaron can get anywhere with Dave, because if not, I will hang up on Dave for wasting 16 minutes and 9 seconds of my life. So I'm just going to let you do this, Aaron. Thank you.
Let me, Dave, I'm going to try to steer things a little differently. Let's see how this goes.
Okay.
Is the creator itself created?
I don't think so. Ouch.
Okay. If that's the case, then I can prove to you light is not the creator, because I'm going to go and do a quick experiment. Light off, light on. I created light. Therefore, light cannot be the creator if I can create light. So I think I did some quick electrical engineering to prove that.
Okay. I find it very interesting that light and matter, in esoteric language, light is masculine, matter is feminine. That's actually where the word matter comes from. My belief is that
the thing is,
Jesus
I don't
was
think any of this
teaching
is going to be
science.
true or interesting, because if you're going to bring in esotericism, now you're bringing in a gargantuan amount of metaphysics that has no validity that we can see, because we've done science for the last 400 years, and there's a reason people went from doing alchemy to chemistry, went from doing astrology to not doing astrology, because we realized, hey, all this esoteric stuff we were doing wasn't generating useful knowledge.
If I could give evidence that light is the carrier of sentience, not that light itself is sentient, but that it at least has some effect on sentience, would that be enough? Would that be at least
No,
something?
because that doesn't actually prove anything, because I'm sentient, things affect me. That doesn't make those things the creator, sentient or carrying sentience. Throw a rock at me, it will change my sentience. That doesn't make the rock a metaphysical carrier of information or consciousness. No, it was a ducking rock you threw at me. The same thing. Light is fundamentally extremely tiny rocks, to be very unprecise with the physics.
Gotcha. So if cells communicate with each other via light, that wouldn't be any sign of light being a medium for sentience?
That doesn't even begin to do anything like that, because you are talking about sending either chemical or photonic signals, okay? But if you're talking about a bunch of things that aren't themselves conscious interacting with each other, that does not somehow become metaphysical. In fact, you've now figured out what is the underlying materialist causes of these things. You've actually figured out how it's not esoteric.
Well, no, I was saying, so to say I'm one with the Father is to say I'm one with light. If you're saying something about the Mother, that's mater, right? That's the Latin word mater comes from, or it means mother in English. And so
that's not where the word matter comes
from. The ancient
from.
Egyptian. Well, I understand what's not where matter comes from.
And it wouldn't fucking matter if it did.
So the Bright-Wheeler
I'm
process.
doing a
what
quick
does that
look
prove?
here. So the word matter traces through English and comes from the Latin materia, not mater. Our
Correct.
word
Materia
mother
and the
comes from the German Mutter,
yeah.
which is not at all related
No,
to the
sir.
word matter or materia.
No, that's not right. Materia, the root of materia.
I'm literally
is
looking at it
mater.
right now. I literally just typed it to get the info on the etymology.
So I think you need to look at it closer. What is the root of
Have you
materia?
actually looked
I'm
at
going to
Latin
mute
at
you,
all?
Dave, and I'm going to be a dick, and I apologize, Aaron. I just can't. I'm going to change the question over my head. And this is the only question I give a shit right now. And that is, why the fuck should I care about word origin or matter? And if this question does not immediately get us to where light is the creator, I will drop you like a hot fucking potato.
Why should you care? You shouldn't. You shouldn't care at all.
I guess that's a great way to say goodbye. Okay.
Yep. All right. We got another theist who may actually want to engage without some kind of esoteric, ooh, I got really hung up on Egyptian stuff and word origins, and I think it might be light because I studied engineering and light stuff. And since I have a hammer, every fucking problem is a nail to me, rather than actually thinking through, hey, is this light in my face or the light that Aaron turned off and on? Is that, that's created. It can't. Oh my God, I cannot believe I wasted so much time. I want to send Aaron a message to let him know that there's an entire new argument out there that I've never heard before that combines word origins and light to suggest maybe if you listen to a life story, you might almost get somewhere in the vicinity of a creator. But let's see if there's other people who can do better. So Ray is a theist also from Texas who wants to talk about what God actually is. Ray, real quick before we get the rest of it, is God light?
I mean, he might be. God
oh my
might
fucking
be
God.
light.
Okay, Aaron, you're still up. I'm going to mute to save my zen.
All right, I've got some water. Let's go. Ray, let's talk about what you want to say about the Almighty.
All right. So, a lot of people think that God is like a person or maybe three people, you know, the Holy Spirit. I forget what they are. But I think that God
Father,
is
Son,
like
Holy Spirit is the traditional
something.
Trinitarian formula.
Yeah. But I think that God is something more cosmic and more unseen. And just like many other scientific discoveries, one day it will be revealed, I think.
Could you
When
call
you
us
say
then and demonstrate it? Because I don't know that we care if you suspect that someday in the future we might have reason to believe in God. We're looking for reason now.
Well, there are a lot of like things that can't be explained. Do you know like the double slit
I don't know of
experiment?
anything that can't be explained. I just know of things that haven't been explained. How did you
But
determine
there's
that
this
something can't be
experiment.
explained? What can't be explained, and how do you know that it can't be explained?
Okay. There's this experiment where if you put two slits in like a paper or something and you shoot light through it, if you observe it, it looks different than how it would be measured like without anyone seeing it. So I guess maybe there's something
Ray, you
higher
probably
that.
dialed in a little bit later, but we actually literally talked about the double slit experiment like a couple calls ago, and it is not
Oh,
anywhere
sorry.
near as mysterious as you think. It's by interacting with the thing that is trying to go through the slits, you have changed the properties of the material. It's not that looking is this passive thing. By looking at something, it requires light. That means light has to interact with the thing. Effectively, you are bouncing a photon off that thing you are trying to observe when you're quote unquote looking at it, and that interaction has an effect. So
Right.
it is the ultimate interpretation of
right.
quantum mechanics is debated, but the double slit experiment
Yeah.
is not this wooey thing that by looking at something, you have somehow made the thing aware that it's being looked at, and then all of a sudden the electron or the photon acts differently because it knows it's being looked at. So it's not mysterious in that kind of way.
Ray, it says here that you're a theist, which means you believe in a God. What God do you believe in, and why should
Yeah.
we believe in it?
I was raised Christian, but I'm not exactly sure if, like, I don't think that the Christian God is the one true God, but I think that every religion kind of worships the same God, which is kind of this cosmic figure that we cannot yet see or explain. That's what I think.
Why should we believe in the God that you believe in?
As of right now, there's not really much evidence.
Why do you believe in
Kind
the
of just
God that you believe in?
because it just makes it makes sense to me, I guess.
Okay. How does
Like
it
from
make
how
sense?
big
Do you know
I'm
any of the
finding a
features of your
hard.
God?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, have you seen? Okay, this is a weird question. Have you seen Futurama?
Mm-hmm.
Ray, put the bong down and focus.
No.
No,
Okay, yeah,
Ray, listen to me very carefully. Put the bong down and focus.
Yes,
Can you name a
yes, sir.
feature of your God and explain why you think God has that feature? Yes or no?
Yeah, I could explain it.
Cool.
God probably
Do
looks
that.
like a combination of nebulas and stars. Kind of
Ray,
this more cosmic.
Ray,
Yeah, yeah.
why should anyone believe that God looks like a nebula?
I think it makes more sense than God being this
Ray,
agender
Ray,
man-looking
does the
figure,
fact
I
that
guess.
you think it makes more sense than some other proposed God, does that serve as any justification for anyone should believe that you are correct, including you?
No, it's not. It's not a
Then go the
justification.
fuck
I'm
away.
just saying that it might be.
Go the
Oh,
fuck away. The entire purpose of this
I thought
is
this
for
was
you to
supposed to
call
be a
in.
discussion.
No, it's not a discussion. You're not worthy of
Oh,
discussion, Ray. The purpose here is for you to explain to us what you believe and why we should believe it. This is not bong rip theology. This is not time waste theology. This is not, I was raised a Christian, but now I watched Futurama and I think God's closer to a nebula, but I don't have any good reason for it. Your entire purpose for calling in is to give us a good reason to believe the bullshit that you believe.
mm-hmm,
And now I can't take you seriously.
mm-hmm.
I don't think you're real at all. I think you were fucking bored and decided to call in and waste time and see if you could bust my zen.
I think that's very insulting to my worldview.
I don't give a shit if you think it's insulting, Ray. You've insulted all of us by wasting our time.
Okay.
Anything else?
Not really.
Cool. Later, man. Call back when you get something substantive. All right. Let's try again because we have other theists, and I find it
Ooh.
disrespectful to all the theists who genuinely want to offer a reason why we should believe it, to make them sit around and wait behind the scenes while somebody who just took a bong rip decides to tell us about how Futurama suggested that God looks like a nebula. So,
The thing
Jorge,
is, I know
I
what
think it's
episode
Jorge,
he's talking about.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
is a
Oh.
theist who wants to talk about why he believes in God, particularly Jesus and the gospel. So, Jorge, you are on with Aaron and Matt. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you guys? I was just getting a
Exhausted.
kick out of that last call and the call before that. But I have seen that Futurama episode. I would definitely not think a God would look like a nebula. That's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think what happened there
I mean, what
was
would
the
God look
caller
like? I would
was
think it
just
looks
like
like
Lure
everything.
and ate the hippie before calling in. And I think that was the problem. So don't eat hippies before
Also
calling
an
into the
awesome
show.
episode. That's so good.
All right.
I mean, okay. So why I believe in at least the Jesus of the Gospels. I mean, I guess when I was searching for what I thought could be the perfectly good person, I hadn't read the Gospels. I actually searched tons of other places first because I had I guess, just one of those normal, teenage American biases against Christianity because they're fucking dumb shits, you know? So I definitely didn't read the Gospels for a while, but, long story short, when I did, I mean, what I had read in there, or at least the character that's portrayed as Jesus in it, to me, and and I know this isn't a great answer for everybody, but to my own heart and my own logical mind, I had no person had made more sense when it came to kindness. And that person in that story could have said,
Really?
don't believe in a fucking thing. And I probably wouldn't have, because I had such a, finally, something, oh, sorry, Kitty. Finally, something that, I fully see and identify with my heart and my mind. And I don't know how good of a proof that is in a universe that thinks and speaks, because we think and speak. So, I mean, we are the universe, and you can heads or tails at anything. But, yeah, I mean, that's my personal reason. I just think the Jesus in that story, I've never fully connected to anything in this world. I mean, I've connected plenty with a lot of things. If anything, I connect with maybe everything, but fully. I think that character really, in nonfiction, fiction, meeting people all over the place, what an exemplary person, And that's hard for me to go against.
I did an entire video going through, I guess, almost everything in the Red Letter Bible, but mainly on the Sermon on the Mount. And I was a fundamentalist Christian for the most of my life. You said you went looking for the perfect person. I don't know why anybody would go looking for the perfect person, because I don't think the perfect person could exist, but it could exist. But you were like, Jesus is the kindest. And do you think Jesus was perfect?
Well, I don't, I think in terms of what I think is a perfect, I didn't see, it was the only thing I read where I didn't get a red flag somewhere. You know what I mean? The person just didn't give me a red flag. At first, the part where he goes to have them get weapons, I was like, oh shit, red flag. Why is he having them go get swords? It was the first part in the Gospels that I was kind of like, what the fuck's going on here now? This is going to make me put it down. I put down everything else. And then,
I'm sorry,
what does he do? The guy tries to defend him with those swords, and he says to live by it is to die by it. And yet every Christian would praise Peter for wanting to defend innocence with a weapon. Where are the Christians who even read that? They're not
I'm aware of the cherry
callers.
picking. I'm aware of the cherry picking.
They don't actually read the Gospels.
Are you opposed to divorce except in the case of infidelity?
I mean, in a perfect world, there wouldn't be any of those things, but
I'm sorry.
It's just like abortion.
Now I can't take you seriously. I tried to take you seriously No,
No, no,
Jorge.
no.
Jorge,
Well,
I
give
tried
me
to take
what's
you
the passage you're
seriously.
referring to? I'm
I
sorry.
tried to take you
No, no. What's the
seriously.
passage you're referring to?
Why are you
Is it
trying to
divorce?
talk over me? Shut your mouth
No,
and
I just need to
listen.
know what you're
Shut
referring
your
to.
mouth and listen.
Okay, go ahead.
You'll hear what you need to hear if you'd stop fucking talking and listen to me. Jesus,
Go ahead.
in the Bible, suggests that the only valid justification for divorce is infidelity. I'm asking you if you agree with him. That was it. That was the whole question. And your answer was not yet.
Well, no, I
I'm
don't agree with
sorry.
that.
I'm sorry. Stop talking.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you wanted an answer.
I literally asked you to stop talking. You
I
didn't
have
say
been. You've been
yet.
talking since.
Okay, I'm going to shut you up the easy way. You're not muted. Nobody can hear you. Whine privately. All I did was I listened to your story. You went looking for the perfect person. Jesus was the one that you found most appealing. Cool. All I did was ask you if you agreed with Jesus on his position that the only allowable divorce condition was infidelity, adultery. And instead of saying yes or no, you did what every dishonest Bible excuser does, which is immediately try to spin as, well, it's not a perfect world. And in a perfect world, it wouldn't be like that. Nobody asked you about a fucking perfect world, did they? No, they didn't. You don't have to say anything. You're still muted. I didn't ask you about a perfect world. I didn't ask you about it. I asked you if you agreed what Jesus said. And for some reason, despite the fact that I'm sat here genuinely asking directly about what it directly says, you wouldn't give a direct answer. You instead come back with, well, in a perfect world. Nobody asked about that. So let's try this again. If Jesus says that the only grounds for divorce is adultery, and you, I heard you a minute ago, say you don't agree with it, what's appealing about Jesus if you guys disagree on that, which fundamentally marginalizes women?
Well, no, it's sexual immorality. It's not infidelity. So you got to get that correct, right? It's very important.
No, you need to stop pretending that you know and understand the Bible, or you know and understand my question.
So, no, stand up to what I just said.
No, I'm going to stand up to what you just said, and I'm going to mute you because I'm sick to death of lying fucking apologists. You've heard it said, you've heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks on a woman with a lust hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. The word there for adultery, which is a Greek word that I can't say, that is there, and it is repeated further down when he's talking about divorce. Whosoever puts away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. That's worse than just adultery. That is specifically suggesting that your wife is whoring. The question wasn't, you obtuse defender, hey, is that a good reason for divorce? The question was, should that be the only reason for divorce? So I'm going to ask a very simple question, and then I'm going to unmute you, and I'd like you to answer that question. Here we go. The question is divorce permissible when someone is being beaten by their partner?
Yes.
That's not what Jesus says.
Well, yes, because it's sexual immorality was the words he used.
Excuse me, Mr. Liar? Did Jesus offer
go
any
look it up.
other?
It says sexual. You may leave
I
because
literally
of sexual immorality, which covers a lot of things.
Okay, I'm sorry. Here, let me mute you. Let me mute you because you're not bright enough for this conversation. Yes, Jesus says that you can divorce for sexual immorality. And Jesus says that is the only grounds. So let me try this again. Jorge, does Jesus say that the only grounds, Jorge, listen, does Jesus say that the only
Sexual
grounds for
immorality.
divorce, would you stop fucking talking over me? I'm trying to, if I have to baby you, it's going to be really bad.
Guy, go on, dude. Stop talking.
How about
Seriously.
I never stop
Spend half
talking?
the time putting people down and the other half.
I'm going to mute you, you dumbass. Listen up. I'm going to ask you a question. It's a yes or no question. I'm sorry that you're not bright enough to get this. It's really straightforward. Maybe if you weren't talking over me and trying to defend your piece of shit God and your piece of shit Jesus and your piece of shit Bible, you wouldn't be looking so foolish right now. The question is really simple. Here, I'll read it to you. I say to you, whoever, oops, sorry, I got the wrong one. Whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. What Jesus is saying is the only grounds legitimate for divorce is fornication. That means that Jesus does not permit divorce based on abuse. Jesus also does not permit the woman to divorce the husband. This is all sexist and a man putting away his wife. This verse is wrong in every possible sense. It makes it so that the men are in charge and they're the ones that decide who's getting divorced. And the only time they can divorce is if their wife is out whoring. They can't divorce for abuse, even if their wife is abusing them. The wives can't divorce at all, even if their husbands are divorcing them. This is Jesus's position on divorce. Here's my question again. Do you agree? Well, first of all, did I accurately represent what that verse says? Yes or no?
Did you accurate? Yeah, you said fornication, which is sexual immorality.
Now,
which I was saying.
Do you agree? Oh my God, I'm going to have to mute you again. You could have done so well here, but instead you decided to get my dander up just a little bit. When I ask you a yes or no question, little baby, you answer yes or no. And if you can answer yes or no, then when I do the follow-up question, you might get to say more than yes or no. I'm sorry this is difficult for you. I read the verse correctly. Jesus only permits divorce in the case of fornication. Do you agree with what Jesus says there, that that is the only case where divorce is permitted? Yes or no?
In the way you are interpreting those words,
I didn't say for you to say any other words. I asked you, you're muted now, nobody can hear you. I asked you if you agreed with what Jesus stated there, that the only permissible grounds for divorce is, we'll go with your word, sexual immorality. Do you agree with Jesus, yes or no?
Yes, I mean, sexual immorality would cover rape, dumbass.
Okay. I'm sorry, super dumbass. You agreed with Jesus. Sexual immorality does not include rape because it's immorality on the part of the woman, unless she's the one doing the rape. If your wife is raped, you don't get to divorce her. If your husband's raped, you don't get to divorce him. If your husband's beaten, you don't get to divorce him. If your wife is beaten, you don't get to divorce. There are countless grounds for divorce that are justified and moral, including, I no longer wish to be married to you. That should be grounds for divorce. There is absolutely nothing It is in the best interest of many. I'm divorced. I'm still really good friends with my ex-wife. Getting divorced was the right thing for us. It wasn't immoral. However, Jesus says that the only grounds that by which a man can divorce his wife is through sexual immorality. I asked you if you agreed with Jesus. You said yes. And then, like a dumbass, you went to rape. So here's my next question, and then I'll stop. Where does Jesus say that it is permissible for a woman to seek divorce for any reason, including abuse?
Shoot, I hate that the beat cuts you off at the end of the question. Can you just do it
Sure.
one more time?
Where does Jesus say that it is permissible for any woman to get a divorce for any reason, including abuse?
I don't know.
You don't know because he doesn't.
I mean, there's a lot of things he doesn't say about society that's not covered in that.
No, I'm sorry. I'm
Am I
sorry.
wrong?
This isn't just a,
There's a
he
lot
didn't
of things
say
that
that.
aren't covered.
I'm sorry.
Well, no,
I'm going to have to
find
mute
it-
you again because you're too stupid to actually listen. Okay?
May I help here? Because Matt's trying to take you to water. I've been sitting here at the watering hole for like half an hour. So how about I
Fair.
pull out the bucket so we can all take a drink? The
Cool.
line says
should I
there's
unmute or
only
mute for him?
keep him muted because this is pointless. This is for the audience sake. The verse here in Matthew 5, verse 32, is that there is only one exception that allows for divorce, and that is translated differently. Sexual immorality is in the NIV. The Greek word is porneia, and it's basically doing sex stuff that is outside the confines of marriage, fornication, prostitution, that kind of thing. So if that is the only thing, because it says, I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for porneia, makes that person a victim of adultery, and that makes the whole thing wrong. He's saying that's the only case. So me being a wife beater is not grounds for divorce. Me being just a jerk to my wife gives no grounds for my wife seeking a divorce. The only thing that could possibly break that up is either she or I does something sexual outside of our marriage. That is the only thing that Jesus allows. The key word here is anyone who divorces his wife except for one reason, and that one reason is porneia. And that's it. And no, there's nothing here about rape. First off, for the longest time, you didn't even have the possibility of rape within marriage. Husband's horny, gets what he wants, that's not considered rape. We only even changed the laws about that in the US in the 1990s. So saying that's what Jesus said is just importing your morality onto the Bible. So yeah, the Bible is great once you force it to be great. I'll stop now.
Yeah, that's actually the point that I was trying to make again. Hopefully, when Aaron says it, you'll understand that when Jesus says there's only one grounds for divorce, you do not think it to argue maybe he just forgot to mention these other ones. Try again, Jorge.
Okay, sorry. I think it's hard for me when I read a story, let's say, and I want to take this story in totality, and I see somebody who draws a line in the sand to save a woman from a bunch of men who suck, and I see one of the only women, only people in these stories who end up having the most faith and love and innocence are the women in these stories, which is unlike any other thing that had come before it. I mean, that's the story. This is the story we're going to be like, oh, it's all about men. You know what I'm saying? It's such a
no,
weird
I don't know
argument.
what. Yeah, actually, I do know what you're saying, which is why I'm going to mute you. Here we go. Get ready. Buckle up, cuck. I don't know if this is a massive dose of copium or if your brain has been so poisoned by religion that you can't see the obvious. The Bible is not a book that is kind to women from start to finish. They're not equal under any view across the entirety of this. If you are a fan of Jesus and Jesus is in fact God, see, what you're doing is you're saying, why are you focused on this divorce thing when there's other stories in the Bible where the women look really good? Really? Women are virtually never named. They are only named as props. Not always only, but the overwhelming majority are named as props or somebody's wife. They are not allowed to own property and inherit property by the same rules that men are. Well, that was just what they did back in their time. No, this is coming from God, according to the Bible. You are absolutely bending over backwards to try to find a way to avoid the problems. I did an entire video, it's on my channel, called The Bible and Women. And it goes through a good chunk of what the Bible says about women and the view of women. Women are property. They are listed alongside property. Even in the Ten Commandments are the things you're not supposed to covet. Here's a question. Let's try this, Jorge. If Jesus is God, in the Old Testament, do you think that the actions that God supposedly took in the Old Testament happened and were just?
No, I mean, just like I think cancer is because of God, or anything is because
No,
of
that's
God,
not
but
what
I
I
don't think
asked.
those
I
things
didn't
were.
ask you. No, sir, I didn't ask you a thing about cancer.
Are
I
we
asked
talking
you
about
about
the
the
Old Testament
actions.
or the New Testament?
Well, I don't know why it would make a difference, but I specifically asked
I
about
like
the Old
the
Testament.
Gospels because things are much different in the Gospels.
No,
He brings
why
a
would they be
new
different?
story.
Why would they
Then we
why
should
would
just cut
they
out the
why
New
would they
Testament then
be
and only focus on the
why
Old.
would you shut your fucking mouth so I can ask you a question? Why
Oh
would
my
they be
God.
different if God is
Okay.
unchanging? Why would they be different if God is unchanging?
Who said God is unchanging? And who's to
The
say it's not
Bible?
progressive revelation and maybe it
The
doesn't
Bible?
change and that our way of interpreting God changes? How is that so terrible?
Did God used to be
Thousands of
immoral,
years
but
of
he got
writing, you
better?
don't think there's going to be any evolution of mind? Are you kidding?
I'm sorry. Did God used to be
It's
immoral
ridiculous.
and then he got better? Did God used to be
I think
immoral and then
people's
he got better?
interpretation of God was
Did God
immoral.
used to be immoral
Yeah.
and then he got better? Did
And then
God
I
used
think
to be
we got
immoral?
better at recognizing
Was
God.
God immoral in the Old
You
Testament?
didn't hear what I said. You're asking a mute question.
You're right. I didn't hear what you said because I don't give a fuck what you say because you're being dishonest. So here's the question. Pay fucking close attention. In the Old Testament, God decides he's going to punish David. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, we're talking about the Old Testament again.
Yes, I am talking about the Old Testament because
Then
without
let's
the Old
just throw out-
Testament, okay, shut up. You don't get to speak. We're talking about the Old Testament.
Jorge, I think we have to put it this way. The fact that he has to run away from the Old Testament shows that he knows it's indefensible.
Yes.
It has not become the good book when you have to basically say, now exclude the first 1,000 years of Bible. And let's just jump to the stuff that if we interpret it right and ignore the stuff we don't like, now it sounds awesome. And never mind where Jesus says not one jot or tittle of the law will disappear until the end of time. Never mind also that Jesus says, hey, all these laws in the Old Testament, you're going to follow them even harder now, motherfuckers. He probably didn't use that exact language, but more or less.
He should have.
In the Gospel of Matthew.
The thing is, we don't get to throw out the Old Testament because you cafeteria Christians who were shitty Christians, you want to toss it out because you know it's difficult. The problem is, if you toss out the Old Testament, you toss out the creation story, you toss out original sin, you toss about substitutionary atonement, you toss out the entirety of prophecy that you'd like to use that claims to use. You don't get to have a New Testament and you don't get to have a Christ. You don't get to have a Messiah without the Old Testament. Some of us aren't just and weren't just convenient Christians. Some of us understood that the Bible is one story. And the Bible specifically says that God is the same today, tomorrow, and forever. So instead of whining like a little bitch about the fact that I'm addressing the Old Testament, why don't you just answer the question? Because if you answer the question and you answer it honestly, maybe I'll give you the space to try to make another excuse so that you look bad again, making excuses for God. So let's try this again. I'm going to unmute you. In the
All
Old
right.
Testament,
I
when
appreciate
God
the space.
decided, I'm sorry, when God decided he was going to punish David, are you aware of that story?
Right, or flood the earth, or all the many other
No,
bullshit
no.
that God does in the Old Testament.
Jorge,
No,
oh my God, you are insufferable. You're a monumental prick and you're never going to bust my zen. I'm so over you. I'm getting ready to school you and embarrass you and make money off of you. So get ready. In the Old Testament, David does something wrong and God decides he's going to punish David. I asked you if you were familiar with the story. I didn't ask you about a flood or anything else. Now I'm going to ask you to see if you know, since you're so defensive about the Old Testament, let's see if you know. What did God do to punish David? Your turn.
I don't know. He was a warrior.
You don't know because you don't know the Bible. Unfortunately, the rest of us do, which is why it's so embarrassing when you call in to say you were looking for the perfect person and then you failed the instant we pointed out something wrong with Jesus. In the Old Testament, when God decided he was going to punish David, God had David's wives raped. Do you remember that story now?
Yeah. Did we not already talk about how man's perception of God?
I'm sorry. You're absolutely embarrassing. I'm telling you what the Bible says, and you're saying that you're trying to come up with excuses for it. Here, let me ask you this.
That
Did you vote for
Okay.
Trump? Did you vote for Trump?
How could I ever vote for Trump? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious because you are
I'm a
bending over
fucking Burning
backwards to
Man since 2015.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you just don't understand basics of anything. You don't understand basic questions. I asked you if you supported Trump because you are supporting someone just as bad as Trump in the biblical carry of the God and making excuses that this comes from man's misunderstanding of the book. But the book literally says that God is going to have David's wives raped. Here's the thing. If God did that, was it moral?
You can't be serious. Is this a real discussion? This is wild.
Okay, I'm going to mute you again because you can't be serious. You're obviously a cartoon. You have no clue what you're talking about. You don't know any of this stuff. And then you're asking me if it's serious. Yes, I'm serious. The Bible says that God had David's wives raped as punishment. And my question to you is very simple, and it shouldn't be laughed off with is this serious? It's a serious question. I'm asking you to tell me, was it moral for God to have David's wives raped?
I think that if my wife was raped, that's
Okay, I didn't ask you anything about your wife, so I've muted you again. We're now at the point where you only get to answer yes or no. If any word other than yes or no comes out of your mouth, I will hang up on you and the call will be over. Yes or no, was it moral for God to have David's wives raped?
all right, listeners. This guy is full of it.
Okay. I keep my word,
Should I read the
motherfucker.
verse?
Yeah, please.
So this is from 2 Samuel chapter 12. Specifically, we're looking at verse 11. And I will give the full context here of what is said because this is not somebody interpreting for God. It literally says, "This is what the Lord says. Out of your household, I am going to bring calamity to you." So in this case, I am going to bring, though I is God. I am going to bring calamity to you, David. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to one close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. God is saying, this is what I am going to do to you. I am going to take your wives and have them get raped by a family member in broad daylight. And then this happens later in the story.
It's unfortunate that the caller couldn't be serious, couldn't be honest. Like so many other cafeteria Christians, he doesn't know the Bible. He doesn't know theology. He doesn't know the history of this. He doesn't care. He wasn't looking for the truth by his own admission. He was looking for the most perfect man that he could find. And it turns out the most perfect man he can find is a storybook character that doesn't value women, that doesn't value equality, that doesn't allow for divorce for anything other than fornication. And if he continues to believe the rest of the story, that same New Testament being is exactly the same being before Abraham was, I am. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You can't have Jesus as divine and as God, whether you believe in a Trinity or just as God incarnate, without the Old Testament stuff and without him also being responsible for the story about assault, having David's wife raped. You also can't have him without drowning the entire world, which didn't happen. And by the way, I don't think those other stories happened either. I don't think Jephthah actually sacrificed his daughter. I don't think God exists. I don't think God accepted a child sacrifice in order that somebody might win a war. I don't think that God did anything to David's wives. I don't think anybody. I think that probably what happened is if any of these stories are true in the events that happened, people after the fact decided to attribute them to a God. The problem is we have a book, and that book is the cornerstone of your beliefs, Jorge. It's the cornerstone of why you think there's a Jesus in the first place that is divine and worthy of your respect. But you want to have your cake and eat it too. You want to cherry pick. You want to go to the cafeteria and say, ooh, that cherry looks good, even though all the rest of them are rotten. Well, congratulations. You just can't see the rot yet. That's the way this actually works. So yes, it was a serious question. I'm sorry that you could not rise to be serious as well. Final call for tonight. Delmar, pronouns are him. Believes a lot of what we share, but we should still have faith. Hey, Delmar, what do you mean by faith?
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. First of all, thanks for taking my call. So faith, I think people should have faith. I mean,
I asked
I'm
what it was.
agnostic, but what is faith?
Yeah.
It's believing in something that you don't have evidence in.
Why should I believe anything for which I don't have evidence?
No, not you. I think people should have faith.
Am I not part of the group?
I understand you're an atheist.
No.
And you're not going to stop being an atheist.
Delmar.
Go ahead.
Am I not in the group that you could call people? Am I not part of people?
No, you're an atheist. Theist. Let's say theists should have faith.
Atheists aren't people?
Yes, you're considered people, but
okay.
In a
so when you say that you think people should have faith, you don't think I should have faith.
Well, you have the decision is yours. Just like
no.
Like
I don't get to decide. First of all, faith. Delmar.
Sure.
Wow, we're all over the place. It's really confusing. First of all, I don't get to decide what I believe. I'm either convinced or I'm not. But I asked you what faith was, and you said that faith was believing in something that you don't have evidence for. I'm asking you, why should I believe in something for which I don't have evidence?
I'll tell you why. Okay, let's go back to your last caller, Jorge. Okay, he was trying to explain to you Well, actually, you guys were talking about divorce. Now, if you go back, Jesus, when he came to fulfill the he didn't come to do away with the Old Testament. He came to fulfill it. So, yes, of course it's okay to divorce your wife for beating you or raping you, or a wife to divorce her husband for raping her. So, of course, because Jesus didn't like religious people.
I'm sorry. What question do you think I asked you? What question do you think I should ask you? Huh? What question do you think I asked you?
You asked me why should you have faith?
I asked you, why should I believe in something without evidence? I'll even put it on the screen above my head. You need to answer that question, right, not about whether or not it's okay to divorce.
Well, it's up to you to have evidence or not. That's up to you.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to have faith. I'm just
Delmar,
basically telling you.
Delmar,
go ahead. Yes, sir.
Can you be honest? Because you're not being honest.
Okay.
You said that you believe people should believe in things that they don't have evidence for. And I said, why should I believe in something that I don't have evidence for? And you started by saying that I shouldn't, and then you changed to saying I should, and now you're saying that I shouldn't. Delmar, why should I believe in something for which I don't have evidence?
You have a choice.
I'm sorry. No, Delmar. Delmar,
right?
Listen to me and please be honest and listen. First of all, belief is not a choice. But I asked, why should I believe in something without evidence? Go.
First of all, if you are a person who is a religious person and you believe in God and you're a Christian and you're a theist, I think it's okay to have faith, because a lot of theists don't have evidence for what.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, Delmar. And congratulations. I'm going to give up. I'm not going to hang up on you. You're fine. But I'm going to give up. It's been a long day. It's a long week. I got a lot of stuff to do. And I talked a lot in the last call, which was unfair to Aaron. And so I'm going to let Aaron take as much of this call as he wants to. But just know, I am absolutely sick to fucking death of you fucking callers who absolutely refuse to answer the basic fucking question you're asked, even when asked over and over and over and over again. I'm maintaining my composure because we're in the year of Zen. But before I stop talking, just know that I absolutely have zero respect for your views, your ability to defend your views, and have no interest in having any conversation with someone who's as dishonest and confused as you are. However, Aaron might want to get you to ask. Maybe he'll get you to ask why someone should believe something without evidence, or maybe he'll explain to you why belief isn't a choice, why doxastic volunteerism is not a real thing, or maybe you guys are going a completely different direction. But I'm going to take a break for the rest of the show. So congratulations, Delmar. You didn't bust my Zen, but I absolutely despise the way you avoid questions. But don't worry, you're not alone. You're just like the overwhelming majority of dishonest fucking callers to the show.
Delmar, let's try something a little different.
Sure.
Is it ever okay to believe things without good reasons to believe that thing is true?
Yes, there is.
What is an example of that, and how would you defend that?
So, for example, if you're not certain of something, right? If you don't have any evidence that there is a God, sometimes it's good to act on something or do something despite your uncertainty.
So this doesn't really get us anywhere, because now you're basically just saying, pretend a thing is true, act like a thing is true, based on a coin flip, not to mention, of course, all the bazillions of gods. So this is a coin with a trillion sides. So not a well-manufactured coin, it sounds like. More importantly, why is that ever a good position? Will that ever get
Well,
you
for
to truth?
example,
Believing something without good reasons.
well, it's just like you don't have to know how brakes work on your car in order to have faith that it's going to stop when you push the brakes. And we know it's not going to work every time. You know that,
That's
okay,
evidence-based.
it's possible
I can
that my
clearly
brakes
tell
may
the
fail.
brakes stop the car
That's
without necessarily knowing the
right.
mechanism. For example, I would have to probably check my car if it's brake pads or if it's drum. I'm pretty sure it's brake pads, but even if I didn't know that, I have the experience. I push this pedal, car slow down. That's straightforward evidence. I was trained before I could ever get my driver's license to see that, hey, you got to use that pedal over there if you ever want to drive this vehicle because otherwise it's not safe. That's very evidence-based. If somebody says they're going to drive that car based on faith, take their fucking license away instantly. Not a chance.
Okay. So faith help people. That's all I'm getting at. Faith help people get by that otherwise couldn't get by if they didn't have faith.
I see that as not only not necessarily true, but actually even worse than that. Because what ends up happening is you have now created a way of saying there is a form of belief that is defensible based on nothing and can defend the indefensible. And there are just too many examples of that in the history of ideas. Once you make an idea immune from criticism because you need it to be true, you've created basically every damning ideology that human history has generated.
Okay. You need so as so do you
Are you still there or
disagree
just thinking?
that no, I thought you were talking. I'm sorry. I thought that do you disagree that faith provides hope for people? Or do you
False
agree
hope.
with that?
And also, it
Huh?
becomes a hope that is destructive. It makes it so if you think this life doesn't matter because the next life matters more, you end up acting differently in this life that can be detrimental to your life and to others. Hope only really makes sense when you have a reason to have that hope.
Right. So it's okay to have hope,
With
right?
reason. Notice that the key caveat I put there. It is not blind hope. It is, oh, I have reason to believe this. I have reason to move forward because of X. Not that it's really nice if it were true, therefore I'm going to pretend that is true. That is literal make-believe.
No. If you just said the key word, you can move forward because hope on X. So we don't always know.
I had a
We don't
caveat
have
with
evidence
hope.
for
Hope, you
everything.
have
We
reasons
don't know
for that
everything.
hope. Irrelevant.
Right. We
I
don't know
have reasons
everything.
for my beliefs. I have reasons for my hopes. And I think hopes that don't have a reason for them are irrational. Why should I hold irrational beliefs? Why should anyone hold irrational beliefs?
So if I ask you why you're here, if I say, hey, if I ask Aaron, why are you here? What would you tell me?
Well, about 40-ish years ago, my mommy and daddy loved each other very much. Some things happened, and several months later, the doctor slapped me on the butt and said, all right, this is your son, go away. 40 years after that, then came here and it's like, hey, you know what? I like talking to people. Matt is willing to entertain me, and so I've been part of the line. That's a extremely terse way of putting how I got here.
Basically, what you're saying is that you are a mistake. You're a fluke. You have no purpose. That's what you just told me.
Actually, better than that, because I decided what my purpose is, and you can't tell me what it is, Delmar. In fact, even if God exists and God tells me what my purpose is, I can say, I don't care what you say. This is what I'm going to do because this is what gives my life meaning. So guess what? All purpose is centrally generated.
Right, all purpose. So if I can explain why I'm here, you have hope. I mean, you have dreams, you have aspirations. And
None of
now,
those
if you
are
tell me you
beliefs
don't,
that are
if you
irrational.
go,
I hope that tomorrow I'm going to have a good day at work. But that's a rational thing to do because I think I have a good workplace. I have a nice home. I have a wife that loves me. These things that make it worthwhile thinking I'm expecting tomorrow's going to be good. It's not that I'm hoping against the improbabilities. It's that I hope nothing goes wrong. I don't expect anything to go wrong, but accidents do happen, whether I stub my toe or I step on the road and end up getting hit by a car. I don't think those are probable. They're possible. So there's where my hope is. I hope those things don't happen, but I also expect them to be low enough probability that I'm willing to get out of bed and seize the day.
okay. So I think a lot of times, and there's nothing wrong with choosing to be atheist, and that's why I'm agnostic. There's nothing wrong with choosing to be theist, because I think we all don't know. We just
This isn't
don't
a matter
know,
of
and
choice.
it's hard to admit.
I could not choose
Right, it's a
to
matter of
become a
choice.
theist because
That's
I do
correct.
not see evidence to make me go in that direction. Fundamentally, you can't make me want to have 2 + 2 = 4, and then I start believing. It's like, no, this is what the evidence points to. This is the logical proof that shows this sort of thing. You can't just say, I'm just going to change my religion today just because I want to. I hold my beliefs because I think that's what the evidence points to. This is what makes the most sense to me. And I will change my mind if new evidence comes along, new argument comes along, I realize some flaw in my thinking or the evidence I gathered. I can't wish to believe differently.
Right. So a lot of believers can't. They don't have evidence, so they have to have faith. And I don't think there's,
Which
in my
is
opinion,
irrational. They literally believe something for no good reason. And since different people come to different beliefs based on the same faith criteria, it's clearly not a way to truth, but it's a great way to make sure we can't figure out what the truth is. That's why I'm saying it is
no, it's not
irrational.
irrational. It's not irrational. It's not irrational to have faith if you
if there's
don't
no
have
good
answers.
reason, that is literally against reason.
If you don't have facts and you don't have evidence, you have it is called faith. And that
it's
and
also
that's
called you don't have to take a
faith,
position. You could also say very simply, Delmar, you said you're an agnostic. In other words, you don't know. You are literally the position you could take. I don't know what the evidence is, so I'll be agnostic. What's the best political system? I don't necessarily know. I can be agnostic about that. I can be convinced one way or the other. I don't know what is the best explanation for the early universe. I'm agnostic about what's the best explanation because I don't have the evidence one way or the other. If I said and I asserted inflation is the one true explanation for the early universe, that would be going beyond the evidence, and that would be irrational.
Well, I think that was a great take. That's an honest take. Okay, so you're basically saying that you're agnostic because you don't know everything about the universe. That's honest.
That's not what I said.
So, what did you say?
I said I was agnostic about a particular position because we don't have the evidence for that. That I don't know everything doesn't mean I'm agnostic about everything. I know I am in a room, and just because there might be some logical possibility that I'm a brain in a vat doesn't change the fact that I think my reasons for believing this are so high, I can call that knowledge.
So if you
I'm not
don't
agnostic
know
that I'm in a room right now.
Right. So, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but that was the position I had, and that's all I have for now. Unless you have any other questions for me.
Not so much questions, but something to take back as a thought. Why is it that there is ever a time it is good to believe things without good reasons? And when you do that, don't you just give permission to believe irrational things?
It's just
I guess that's 2 questions, but I want you to just take that back and mull that over for a while because I think that's going to improve your thoughts about this.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for taking my call, gentlemen. Hey, I'm a subscriber. I'm a new subscriber, so thank you.
Tell your friends, subscribe more.
Yep.
All right. Good night.
Okay. So Arden just let me know that the dog just ate her slipper. And so no matter how irritated I am at, by the way, we got through that entire call, and literally the last question you asked him was the one that had been over my head the whole fucking time with just, I mean, the slightest change in wording. So it's just one big circle. And, the caller's like, oh, you just said you were an accident. No, it's like, I'm starting to figure it out, what we talked about at the beginning of the show. And that is, people aren't listening to understand. They're listening to find their opportunity. And so Delmar has an understanding, and he's waiting for you to say the thing that he thinks, either through misunderstanding or twisting, supports his understanding, rather than trying to understand your understanding at all. Delmar, like every caller pretty much did it. It is, oh, let me find my spot. Oh, you just said that you were an accident. No, might have been, might not have been. Well, you don't have a purpose. Well, but I loved it. It was like, hey, some believers don't have evidence, so they have to have faith. Yes, that's called irrationality. Find me the believers that do have evidence, Delmar. Go out and find the believers that think they do have evidence and have them call, because I can't choose my beliefs. And I won't. Like, even if I could choose my beliefs, there's no way I'm going to choose beliefs that aren't supported by evidence. That would be stupid, because you have no way of telling the difference between whether your belief is right or not. If you care about whether or not your beliefs are true, the measure of whether or not you are justified in believing something is true is the evidence, not faith, not I want to believe this. But all right. Since we have a shoe that's been eaten, huge thank you to Aaron for joining me tonight on the Sunday show after dark, and to everybody for tuning in. There's a list of all the patrons. You can watch other shows tomorrow. And Monday is Skeptalk in the evenings. Tuesday's Chewed Gum. Wednesday is the Hang Up. I'll be back here. And Thursday's the Transatlantic Call-In Show. You can go to patreon.com/call-the-line. You can click like. You can click subscribe. You can join. You can do just like Delmar and be a new subscriber and go tell people subscribe. And when you do, subscribe and watch more than you call until you're sure you're ready. See you next time.